Inside the Birds is back. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Birds pregame live presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Jeff Mosher, alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Kaplan. And joining us, as always, is former Eagles Pro Bowl left tackle. He's got it on the jersey. You can see it right there. Trey Thomas, wearing his own number. What's going on, Trey?
I'm fantastic, man.
I know you are. I know you are. Also with us, as always, the godfather of the tape breakdown. His name is Greg Cosell. Greg, how are you?
Jeff, I'm doing great.
I hope all of you guys had happy holidays, Christmas, whatever you celebrate. And I hope our viewers at home also had Merry Christmas, happy holidays. And if you're like us, you're probably turning the page and looking forward to 2021. But 2020 ain't over yet. The Eagles actually have a meaningful game today, a meaningful December game. Who would have thought that weeks ago? They will play the Cowboys in Dallas. So we have a lot to talk about. First, if you like wine and you like painting, you can do both at the same time, all courtesy of Pinot's Palette here in Cherry Hill. Check it out with Trey Thomas and his wife, Rosa Thomas. You can go to their website, pinospalette.com/Cherry Hill. Also, when you're watching at home, please give us a like on YouTube. If you're watching on a different platform, whether it's Twitter or something else, please give us a share. We would greatly appreciate it. I want to start off today because, Adam and I talked about this on the podcast where it's Dallas week here in Philly, but it hasn't felt like Dallas week. I think a lot of that is the holidays. A lot of that is neither team is very good. But, Trey, everybody has always had a story. Everybody who's either played or coached for the Eagles has always had a story about when they realized Dallas week was special, and that even games like this that don't pit two very good teams against each other carry special significance. Yeah. When, for you, you're from Florida, you played at Florida State, you come to Philadelphia, you're drafted in 99, correct?
98.
98, my fault. Yeah. I'm trying to make you younger.
Yeah, it's okay.
Ray
Rose last draft.
There you go. Okay, you're the one.
Good trivia question.
When did you realize the significance of this rivalry?
You know what? Because back then we used to have those, still had the carnivals for the team. So you had the Eagles carnivals. And I remember my rookie year just having a fan come up to me and like, look, man, I don't care what y'all do, just beat Dallas. Yeah, I don't care how the season goes, just beat Dallas.
It's almost as if you guys finished 2-14 with 2 wins over Dallas, that some fans would have been all right with that.
There you go, victory. And, just even when you first time going out there, just how it was, the energy around that whole game, in here in Philly and when you go to Dallas. Just the energy built around that, man, it was just always just beat Dallas.
Yeah, Adam, as someone who grew up in the burbs of Cheltenham, I'm sure you remember some epic, the Buddy games were great, weren't they?
Yes, okay. Speaking of that, I'll never forget when Jimmy Johnson, if you remember, Buddy went on a diet, and Jimmy Johnson and Buddy Ryan had this really bitter rivalry, and Jimmy Johnson, after a game here in Philly, took a shot at Buddy.
Yeah, his weight?
That was it. Oh, yeah. And Buddy said something like, he deadpanned as he always did. He's like, hey, I thought I lost some weight. Stuff like that. So that was great. But the best memory, if you grew up in Philly, was the run by number 20, Leroy Harris, up the middle, and they spiked it in the cold weather for the NFC Championship game. That's something I'll never forget living here and growing up in Philly. And it was an amazing time because we had not had a lot of success until Jaws came here in 1977. Dick Vermeil in 1976. They turned things around. It took about 3 or 4 years, but it was pretty cool. And that was a pretty cool time to be here with Vermeil until he resigned in 1982.
Well, that was the 1980 championship game, and that cold weather game when Wilbert had the big game, the big runs.
31, Wilbert Montgomery.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, man, he was so good. Yep. It's a shame because he ripped up his knee at a time when knees didn't get fixed the way they get fixed now.
Sure.
And he was basically a back ahead of his time. Because, everybody thinks of Marshall Faulk. Wilbert was Marshall Faulk before Marshall Faulk.
And who was Wilbert Montgomery before Wilbert Montgomery? Do we have one? We'll have to think. I'll get back to you later. I put you on the spot.
Not with before Wilbert got there.
Wilbert lined up at wide receiver on numerous snaps in that Super Bowl that they lost. I mean, he could line up a wide receiver, but backs did not. Well, the guy who was probably like that was Lenny Moore. If you want to go back in history.
Sure.
Lenny Moore, who was a back and a wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. Penn State, correct?
Correct.
There we go. All right. I always love it when you bring up the Penn State guys. It's hard to believe, but this game does carry significance because the Eagles are still involved. The Cowboys are still involved. Any team can win the NFC East as we sit here today. However, a couple of teams can get eliminated if they lose today, and that would include the Cowboys, I believe, can be eliminated if they lose today. So a lot on the line. And
the Eagles, too.
And the Eagles, too.
Yes,
And the Eagles as well.
Yeah.
That's
Carolina wins.
I keep thinking the tie would help them in there, but no, you're right. They do get
If
eliminated.
Carolina loses to Washington, Eagles are out.
Yeah.
There you go.
They may be getting some help today. We'll see.
We shall see. We'll get into it all. Obviously, injuries big today for both teams who are going to be shorthanded in a very meaningful game. We will start with the Eagles as we always do. Now, the good news is that Jalen Reagor, who had that ankle injury at the end of the game last week, is going to be. It was not listed on the last injury report,
yeah,
right?
He has no injury
he's
designation,
good.
so that means he's probable to play. So he'll play today. That's a good thing because remember, at the end of the game, you saw him on the TV picture that he was on the sideline. So the good thing is that he took his normal reps in Friday's practice. Richard Rodgers is out. That's why they signed Caleb Wilson off the practice squad. Now the big one here was Cam Johnston, the punter, as we saw, did not finish the game. Now they did work out Matt Weil, who's a journeyman punter, but they didn't sign him, which tells us that Cameron Johnson will be available today.
Right. Now on defense, Adam and guys, it's not going to be easy for the Eagles. Of course, Fletcher Cox is questionable. I think he's going to give it a go. He's had the neck that's been giving him a problem, but very short-handed at right defensive end with Barnett and Josh Sweat both out. You have a question, Trey?
Yeah. If Cam Johnson if they don't have the punter, will it just be Jake Elliott handing all?
Just Jake Elliott, Jake Elliott,
So
and going for it on fourth down a lot.
You saw that
going
punt.
for it now. You then, like whenever you score, just go ahead and go for two.
Go for two.
No, that's right up Doug's alley. There.
Don't worry. He loves doing
It's
that.
tailor-made.
Yeah, this is good. Don't worry about it.
Hey, besides, Jake Elliott had a pretty decent punt last
he
week.
had a
So
couple good
he did
punts.
all right. He did all right. It's
Yeah.
probably the only thing he's done well in the last 3 weeks. So
Look at that, man.
there you go. Also, not only is the D-line for the Eagles beat up there at defensive end, but at linebacker, they will be without Duke Riley. He's got a biceps injury. That's going to put T.J. Edwards on the field a little more in nickel.
Yep.
It's not where they've used him a lot, so we'll get into that breakdown and how the Cowboys can attack that. And corner. Holy cow, are they short at corner, and they didn't really do anything throughout the week to address it. They're going to go into this game. Let's say who's out. Kevon Seymour is out. Darius Slay will play, apparently, because
he was
come back from the concussion. But they did not add Jamison Houston or Blake Countess from the practice squad. So they go into this game with Darius Slay, Nate Jaquette, the rookie free agent, and Nicole Roby-Coleman as their three corners.
That's it. So they cannot afford an injury. And Greg was making a comment before we started the show. We have the numbers, 72%, just about 72% that the Cowboys play three wide. So that's fourth most in the National Football League. Good luck.
It's basically their base offense.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they have an injury, what are they going to do?
I don't know. It's very surprising the Eagles went this route. I mean, they must feel like their safeties are going to be better in coverage
Well, they
than
must
maybe
feel
we
that
expect.
a Marcus Epps or someone like that
can
can match up
Right.
if need be.
Right. But again, as Adam pointed out, even if guys are playing well, you get one injury and you're really stuck.
Can't afford it.
You got the Green Goblin back there. You'd be all right.
The Green
They could
Goblin
do that.
can
That's
win.
right.
That's
And
true.
they didn't do that last week. We were surprised by it. They did not move Mills over to corner, so that would be another option.
Right.
That is
Mills
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. All right. For the Cowboys, they will be with Ezekiel Elliott. We're going to get into him a little bit later in the show because I think there's a faction of people that might think that Tony Pollard has already overtaken Zeke Elliott as the Cowboys' better running back option. But
Zeke's got a pretty big contract.
yeah, he does. As Trey likes to say, they played the money, man, and right now that's what's going on. Ezekiel Elliott will play. No injury designation for Michael Gallup, who had a hip deal going on, so it sounds like he's going to play. However, they will be without Antoine Woods, a defensive tackle who's on IR. That's their fourth defensive tackle to no longer either being playing or with the team, going back to Dontari Poe and then Tristan Hill, and of course the guy they signed for Gerald McCoy. So they're pretty thin up front in that regard. Also out is going to be Leighton Vander Esch, their linebacker. So it looks like for their nickel package, it's going to be kind of like the Eagles situation. They're going to have to play Sean Lee a little bit more in nickel than they would like. And we've seen a lot of Sean Lee here. He plays very well at times, but
They'll probably play Thomas a lot too, because I don't know if they'll play Lee 60, 70 snaps.
Right. Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas, right?
48, yeah.
All right, so they'll be on some reserve linebackers there. Their safety, Xavier Woods, is going to be out with a rib injury. So obviously both teams beat up a little bit in some key areas. The big story for the Eagles from a transaction standpoint is that earlier in the week, they activated Desean Jackson into the 21-day window. and it sounds like he's going to play.
Oh, he's playing.
He's definitely playing. All right.
I was told he looked normal. Now the question is, obviously, being out over 2 months, conditioning-wise, how many snaps could you give him? I could see a third of the snaps today. And you know what? We've been saying this since we started the show in 18. Would surprise me first or second play of the game.
How's his rap album doing?
You know, that's a good question. Is it like the, I don't know, has it been out lately?
I don't know.
You mean the one he released earlier?
I listen every day,
the album?
Yeah, the rap album, the one
Against
you
All
guys talked
Odds?
about.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You know, you got to get into it, man.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to check it out.
Against all odds, Desean will adjust to that.
Against all odds. You got to get into it, man.
Was that supposed to be about his season coming up or the season last year? I couldn't figure it out.
It covers his career.
But it's going to be interesting to see what they do here because Dallas is deep at corner, but they're not the fastest guys in the world. So do you spread them out? Do you get Reagor and Jackson on the field the same? I understand they play the same Z position, but there's certain things you could do to get them on the
question.
field. And then you get Miles Sanders on the field. And Dallas Goedert, who's their fastest tight end or their most explosive of the top guys. That's a formation I'd like to see.
And Quez Watkins is playing a lot of snaps now.
Yeah, no, here's your question, though. Speaking of that, Greg, here's the issue. Desean will be active today. Do you have Quez Watkins, who's basically your 5th receiver, active? That's another question.
And it's a great question because he's played over 20 snaps in each of the last 2 games, and obviously he had the touchdown last week on the 3rd and 20 play.
Yeah.
You know, he's got some juice too. I mean, who's to say you don't put Watkins, if Watkins is active, and we won't know that, and we certainly won't know it during our show, obviously, because it's a 4:25 game, but who's to say you couldn't put Watkins, Jackson, and Reagor on the field at the same time?
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
I mean, wow. Wouldn't you do that?
I would.
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, everything is, this is a must win.
And by the way, you know what, and I know we're going to get, I don't mean to
No.
to
Go
jump
ahead,
ahead,
take it away.
my,
it away.
my brain works
One
in weird
thought.
ways,
Give us a
Jeff, you
thought.
know?
It's
fine.
The other thing about that is you put speed on the field like that, and you force the defense to have to play vertically, it creates room also for Jalen Hurts to run on called passes.
Absolutely.
Because now the defense has to play vertically.
And they rarely play dime, Dallas. They only play dime about 6%
That is
of the
correct.
time.
They're a sub-nickel defense.
Yep.
Sure.
Oh, boy. They're a 70% nickel defense. So I'd love to see this.
Also worth noting, the Eagles signed from the practice squad for this game T.Y. McGill, defensive tackle, and also defensive end Joe Osman, who's probably going to have to play significant minutes or snaps
20,
today
25 snaps.
with Barnett and Josh Sweat out. It's going to be a Vinny Curry operation.
Guy. He's more of a sub-package guy. So
Right.
They just not having Josh Sweat, who's had a breakout season. He's so versatile, such a good football player, and obviously Barnett, who's had a good season. This has been his best, most consistent. Because those tackles for Dallas are below average. That's an advantage, even without those guys that they're going to have.
I dare you to say that to their face. They're below average.
Well, we'll see how we'll see how it goes today. We'll see if the Eagles can win it.
All right, real quick, let's get into some news earlier in the week. The Eagles had their Pro Bowl announcements, and as you would expect, not too many from the Eagles this year. In past, you'll see 5 or 6. This year, just 3. Some familiar names. Center Jason Kelce made his 6th. Defensive tackle. We'll get into this.
I thought it was Trey as soon as I saw that.
Yes, me too. Fletcher Cox made his 6th. I believe it's his 6th straight for Fletcher Cox. And Brandon Graham makes his 1st Pro Bowl of his career.
Awesome.
So congratulations to Brandon Graham.
Good job, fellas.
Yes, very good. And we'll talk about that. Now, they're playing this game sort of indoors, but there is a hole in the roof, so I don't know if that merits a real tropical storm Kaplan weather update. It's going to be fine. They'll be all right. No snow. We're not going to have snow coming through the hole.
I think it snowed in Dallas, Texas a couple years ago.
It did. Remember
the Super Bowl.
Oh my God!
They had no idea what to do.
2010. It was awful.
It was brutal.
Really bad.
I mean, I don't wish ill.
And then on Saturday it was 65.
Right,
sunny.
Yeah, remember in the ice, Greg, if you were at that Super Bowl.
I was.
Remember the ice, and then they put dirt on that. They didn't have salt. So
And by the way, it was brutal because. Not that anyone cares, but I was staying at the hotel next to the stadium, and the Radio Row was in Dallas, and ESPN's offices were in Fort Worth, and it's 30 minutes each way. You know, from Arlington to Dallas is 30 minutes, from Arlington to Fort Worth is 30 minutes the other direction.
Right.
And I remember having to drive, and it was literally you were driving on a sheet of ice because they don't know how to deal with snow and ice in Dallas. I mean, they don't do that stuff.
It would take like 2 hours.
About. And you had to go 10 miles an hour.
Sure. You would have thought the sky was falling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean,
it was freaking cold too.
It was. And the odd thing is, I remember a couple of years later when they had the Super Bowl in New York, everybody was worried about it was going to be outside and cold.
I didn't go to that one.
It was very nice. Of course, you wouldn't, right? Right around the corner, they didn't even go.
In the mid-50s,
It was actually fine.
The only one I missed
day
in like the last 25 years. I didn't go to that one.
Excellent. So the temperature should be fine for the game. All the elements should not be an issue. Again, as we get into the show here, please remember to like us on YouTube. You can leave a question or a comment in the YouTube chat box. We've been trying to get to those as much as possible throughout the show. We were able to get to some for the last few weeks. So leave us a question, leave us a comment. I'll read it out here. If you have a specific question for any of our fine panelists here, I will direct it toward them, and we thank you for that. All right, let's get into this game. Let's talk about the QB. Last week, we had a chance to see what Jalen Hurts would do for an encore. It was his first NFL road start, and he did not disappoint. The man threw the ball 44 times, did not get intercepted, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, partridge and a pear tree. No, it was really special. He dropped back 55 times.
Because if you add the 6 sacks plus the non-designed runs.
Which is what you said. You said you felt like that game, they were going to have to score points and throw the ball. And, of course, they didn't win, but they did throw the ball well.
And you know what I loved? Early in the game, they've got the safety. And obviously, when you see that, you go, oh, this is not a good start. The first 2 series were not a good start for the Eagles offense.
Plus, he also threw the one that should have been intercepted by Isaiah Simmons.
Yep. Right. So you go, oh, boy, this is not good. Let's see how he reacts. And he just mentally tough. He hung in there. And you got to love it. And Greg pointed out on our Inside the Birds television interview with him, which was people love this point, Greg. He had timing throws, a ton of them in this game. And here's the thing. Talking to some coaches who graded his tape, you didn't see a lot of these throws on tape in college.
No, and it's funny you say that because I compared him to Dak Prescott coming out, and a lot of people, when they heard that, said, oh, that's a terrible comparison. Well, they might be thinking of Dak Prescott now. Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick coming out of Mississippi State. And one reason he was a 4th-round pick is because there were major concerns about his ball placement. Mm-hmm. He was not a very accurate passer with any consistency coming out of Mississippi State. And Jalen Hurts had some of those same issues coming out of Oklahoma. And in fact, when the Eagles drafted him in the 2nd round, not only were we very surprised in Philadelphia, but just scouts were surprised and GMs were surprised and personnel people were surprised that he wasn't really seen as a 2nd-round pick, as Adam well knows. And one of the reasons he wasn't seen that way, because there were concerns about his ability to throw the football with consistent ball placement. Mm-hmm. And not only did he do a very good job of that last week, but he also showed a sense of timing that was, yes, he did do that at times at Oklahoma because of Lincoln Riley's offense, but that certainly wasn't something, as you evaluated him, you said, oh, man, he's a great timing thrower. That was not the way you thought of Jalen Hurts coming into the NFL.
No, definitely not. And one thing that we have seen, Trey, is the poise and leadership that you spoke about last week. And I don't think any fan wanted him to be down 16-0 after 5 or 6 minutes into the game, but certainly that was the pressure cooker test right there that he seemed to pass by not unraveling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he stayed within himself, and, he made some really good throws. When you go back to that safety, he expected that to be protected. It was a very simple protection that should have been picked up. I mean, it was a simple blitz. Where you have a tight end involved in the game, it's man protection, so you know that that should have been picked up. Mm-hmm. And the safety ends up coming in, it threw him off, and now he's shot, and he's like, all right, he's dropping back and still trying to delay and make some plays with his legs. But I mean, as he continued to progress, it just seems like even though he was sacked 6 times, he still calmed down, made some really good plays, and extended some plays with his legs, and was just able to make some really nice throws.
Is there? This is completely subjective, and it's only 2 starts, but is there a different feeling now about the type of coaching going on in the building when you see one quarterback be able to run these concepts and be successful, whereas the other was just completely lost within the offense?
It does seem like he's having a lot more success with some of the same stuff that's going on. Of course, you see a couple more little rollouts here and there, but it's not a big emphasis going into the week where you announce, hey, we're going to call more rollout plays, or I think they're coming up with some different ways of getting to it where it's rolling out to the actual play side, where usually if the line goes left, you roll to the right. But you saw times where when the line went left, he rolled to the left as well. So they're coming up with different ways of doing the same thing, but you know, I think all in all, at the end of the day, it's kind of basically the same playbook.
Yeah, this is an interesting game because if he continues to play well and has a third straight good game, I think and again, 4 games is not a big sample size, but, you know, if you have 2 good games, 2 bad games, okay. You have 3 or 4 good games out of 4, then all of a sudden the wheels have to be spinning inside the head of the owner, which may just complicate all the decisions, Adam, that he's probably has to make here.
Yeah, and the first one will be on the head coach. I would say within 48 hours after the season ends, is he going to come back or not? And then if he does, who are going to be his assistants? Who are going to be which coaches will remain? Will they all remain? And who will be coaching the quarterback? And then obviously the biggest one of all will be what will happen with Carson Wentz. Now that'll play into what you just said. If Jalen Hurts continues to play well, I don't want to say it's a good decision to make. It's an extremely tough one. It'll be excruciatingly painful with the cap. We'll get into this after the season's over, but their cap issues are enormous. They're tough. Something that they haven't had to deal with before. Then you add the potential of trading Wentz's contract. Teams will love to receive that contract. It's trading it from the Eagles standpoint, Jeff, which is going to be very, very difficult.
Greg, go back to the game against the Saints that Jalen Hurts had. We noticed that he ran a lot. A lot were designed, and that he seemed to do well when they blitzed him as far as knowing where to go and what to do with the ball. When you looked at the game against Arizona, what did you see different as far as either growth or something different from the week before? Anything that stand out?
Well, what stood out to me was the timing throws. And a lot of those are what we call spot throws. We spoke about that earlier in the season.
Right.
And those are throws where you're throwing it to a spot based on the route. You're not waiting for the receiver to see what he does. Those are practice throws. Ron Jaworski used to tell me he could throw those blindfolded because you drop back, you hit your back foot, and you release the ball and you're throwing it to a spot. There were a number of those throws which he handled extremely well. The 39-yarder to Jeffrey late in the game was actually a spot throw. You don't know Kirkpatrick's going to fall down, but it's a spot throw because when you see him release that ball, Kirkpatrick's actually playing with outside leverage. Now, his body was turned inside, and when your body's turned inside as a corner, you can't play out routes. So you know that you can make your throw. But he made a lot of spot throws, which, again, those are throws you were not certain that he could make with any kind of consistency. Now, you have to say it's a 2-game sample size. And we don't know where he's going to go, but just playing off, and I know Adam wants to jump in here, but playing off what Adam just said, I think, and I could be dead wrong, Adam follows this stuff way more than I do, so I could be talking to Adam, you know what. But I think if Hurts plays well, regardless of win or lose the last 2 games, I think you're going to see Doug back. I don't think you're going to see major coaching staff changes, and I think they're going to find a way to get Carson Wentz out of here. That's what I think is going to happen.
That's the popular view from just the media standpoint that, hey, well, you're really going to remove the coach who developed this quarterback, Jalen Hurts. But my argument against it is he's the same coach who did not develop Carson Wentz well enough, and Nate Sudfeld, who they're paying $2 million not to dress this season.
So I wanted to ask this to Trey along those lines because I feel like some of the sentiment that's being expressed about Jalen Hurts right now, which is genuine excitement and happiness from the fans to see this guy succeed, right? I feel like some of those plays, for example, he fumbles, picks it up, throws a completed pass, which is amazing, right? That was Carson Wentz a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like literally fumbling the ball, picking it up.
And,
and so I think if you're a second-level thinker here, you're excited about what you're seeing about Jalen Hurts. But just like Adam said, with the same coaching staff that enabled the regression of one quarterback, you kind of have to wonder about what this all means for the long term. How long can you be excited for Jalen before you wonder if the same cycle is repetitive here? Because ever since the Eagles got rid of Donovan McNabb, they really have not had a guy take that helm at quarterback and be a 5, 6, 7, 8 year starter.
Well, one of the things I think that separates Jalen from Carson, the younger Carson, he doesn't take the same hits. He's not trying to run over guys. I mean, you know, you'll see him like, all right, you know what? Other than when he tried to get that, when he forced that touchdown, when he ran over the guy to get in the end zone for his first touchdown, you'll see him get down, he'll slide, he'll get out of bounds. He doesn't take those big hits. Carson was out there running like he was Herschel Walker, trying to still, as a quarterback, take deep safeties on and trying to run guys over. You don't see the same type of running when Jalen has to get out of the pocket.
But Adam made a really good point because people have forgotten, because of this season, how special Wentz was. I mean, coming off the 2017 season, people were talking about Wentz, deservedly so, by the way, because that's what the tape showed, and he made really special plays. The tape showed that he was on his way to being a top 3 quarterback in this league. Now, you have to, if you're the owner, if you're Jeffrey Lurie, you have to assess what happened? It's the coaching staff. They made some changes over time with offensive coaches. What happened with Carson Wentz? How much blame it gets placed on the coaching staff? I'm not in the building, so how much blame gets placed on Carson Wentz? You need to have a number of come-to-Jesus conversations and figure out where it all went wrong, because Carson Wentz is a high-level talent, and as Adam can tell you, there's many, many teams that would be interested in Carson Wentz if he was truly available.
And it's a very easy contract to take if you're an NFL team.
Yeah.
It's the team that has him currently that it'll be painful from a salary cap standpoint. But it is the story of the offseason, is what they're going to do at quarterback. And as you set it up very well, Jeff, if Hurts continues to play well, I don't know how else to say it, and Greg said it, it becomes an easier decision.
Yeah.
Because how do you walk away from a guy who's ascending right now? Again, the sample size is small, but what you want to do is you want to see more of it.
And say what you want. In this town, and may not be true in smaller cities, but in this town, the drumbeat of sports talk radio, social media, is going to be Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got to play. And after a while, even though you're technically not supposed to respond to that, if the drumbeat gets so loud and it's every day and every day, which it will be, by the way, if Hurts plays well in these last two games, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, you know what's really
Don't you agree, Trey?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, right now, especially in this era right now, it's, everything is right there in your face. If you're on social media, if you're on Twitter, I mean.
And everybody is.
Yeah.
In our business, everybody is.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be right there in his face.
Yeah. What's really interesting, Adam, and we know this, we're talking to people around the league. What's interesting from a Carson Wentz level is that, as Adam has pointed out, there will be teams that are lining up to trade for him.
Without question.
But it is not, I will also say, the people around the league are not tone deaf as to the issues pertaining to Carson Wentz. They don't look at it from afar and say, man, the Eagles ruined him. His stubbornness is well known, at least especially from people who are from other teams but have some kind of close ties to the Eagles, whether they either work from there or know people that know Eagles. They know that Carson isn't just mechanically in need of some fixing, but they know that upstairs they really need to get
he needs
him.
to be rebuilt. It's not. There's no simple fix here. Anyone who would trade for him knows that the tape shows you he needs to be rebuilt. There's no fixing this situation. You start with his footwork. You see where he is from a mental standpoint. Why has he been defeated like this season? He looks like a shell of his former self. Where's the confidence? And you have to have a coaching staff that A, is going to coach him hard. We've been saying this now for 3 years on our show. Okay, we all know this. It's not a secret. Someone who's willing to challenge him and keep going at him until you get what you want from him. And for whatever reason, Press Taylor, Doug Peterson, everyone who's worked with him this season clearly cannot reach him. It's a fact.
Yeah, and I think it's going to have to be a team that has had some type of relationship with him in the past. You know what I'm saying? Just someone that understands, like, look, this is what it's going to take.
Because they know him.
Pull that out of him because
like
you know him.
in Indy or D. Filippo in Chicago.
Exactly.
Right.
Maybe even Joe Douglas with the Jets since they've lost
another
out
one.
on,
Right.
on Trevor Lawrence potentially.
Right, if they don't get the first pick overall. Sure.
Yeah, so there'll be some suitors. We know that. So it's going to be an interesting offseason as this thing continues. I want to get back to the offense. I thought last week one development we also saw was Jalen Hurts' ability to drive the ball. He certainly didn't unleash a lot of 50 and 60-yarders, but he was able to find targets.
Well, he did have one, and Reagor would have scored if he would have hit him.
He would have.
On that post
that's
route.
2 weeks in a row, I think, where he could have had Reagor on a deep over or a post.
Well, that was a post. It was against.
Right.
We talked about this on Inside the Birds this week. That was a post. It was against cover 4. Hurts read it well. Patrick Peterson was playing with outside leverage because that's what you play in cover 4.
Right.
And Reagor ran right by him.
Right.
And now there was a stunt there, and Sayamalu got driven back a little bit into the pocket by Golden. I don't know if that impacted Hurts' throw, only he could tell you that, but he left it just a little bit short. It should have been a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. I think some would say at least he recognized, the opportunities there. He tried. I mean, there were several weeks.
Well, it was the right read. It was absolutely the right read.
His 7.8 yards per pass attempt, which can be a little bit inflated by the screens and things like that, but in general was the second highest for an Eagles starting quarterback this year. So you saw some development there. Travis Fulgham caught an X-play type of catch.
And Ertz big play.
Goddard as well. So we saw the offense open up a little bit, and this is a Dallas team that I think almost invites you to open up your offense even more. Greg, what have you seen? Earlier in the year, the Cowboys were giving up explosive plays, I think at a historic rate.
They were making a ton of mistakes in the secondary.
Right.
They were assignment mistakes.
Are they a little bit more improved in that regard?
They're a little more improved, no question.
How so? Like, what is?
They're
what's the
just better in
difference?
terms of executing their assignments. When you play in the secondary, particularly when you play zone, it's about assignment, it's about playing with leverage, and it's about eye discipline. And they did a really bad job through the first 6 or 7 weeks with just basic concepts. I mean, a lot of people ripped Mike Nolan, and like I said, we're not there, so we don't know how he's teaching, how he's coaching, and he was an easy rip. And I know Adam spoke about the fact that through 5-6 weeks he might have been in trouble. That's settled down to some degree, I think.
tell you, the owner ripped him.
The owner ripped him, right.
Well, what it was is,
But just to finish, they've gotten better, but they were making basic mistakes in simple coverage concepts.
Right.
Cover 3, cover 4. Corners on the outside had their eyes in the backfield. That's just, you can't do that.
they should know better. These are professionals.
Yeah.
But the argument, Jeff, that people had in Dallas is this: why are you putting a new defensive scheme in without an offseason? That's the argument. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's the criticism that Nolan got. And based on what Greg said and what you and I have heard, first half, ironically, until they played the Eagles, when the Eagles only scored 15 offensive points, they were terrible in defense.
Right.
Good. At that point, they were giving up 6 yards a carry. Now they're giving only 5 yards a carry.
Oh, no, they're not great, but they're better.
But they're better than they were, but they're still very beatable.
So they kind of make you work for your yards now, as opposed to just rolling out the red carpet for them. But
If you
they're still not
protect,
a good defense.
if you protect, plays are going to be there. That's the question.
Trey, that almost speaks to, again, the idea of trying to get a little bit more, 10 and 11 personnel out there to beat a defense like this.
Absolutely. I think, you try to spread them out, and then if you can get that run game going, then now that brings everybody down, then now you go over the top. Now, one of the things I feel like Jalen does a really good job of, he's reading that safety and understanding, okay, you know what, you got help over here, you're man on over here to the other side. So you saw him attacking, throwing plays downfield. Even if you don't make the catch, you got to pass interference.
Absolutely. Now, Dallas has, as you guys were pointing out, the fifth worst defense against opposing wide receivers in terms of catches, yards, touchdowns. Now, a lot of that, again, was weighted by the first 5 or 6 weeks, but they're still vulnerable. Trey, do you feel like this offense with Jalen right now, obviously to get the ball down the field, and if you need a 7-step drop, you got to be able to protect. There's still some issues going on, which we'll get into when we talk about trench talk. But overview here, do you feel like they've got enough to be able to give Hurts enough time to do that?
Yes, but the problems weren't 7-step drops. It was the 3-step drops that was giving him problems.
Well, that's problematic too.
Because Matt Pryor's first sack was on a 3-step drop. Now, Matt Pryor was late off the ball, but now here you go where Jalen gets to his third step. The ball is supposed to come out. He holds on to it. Then boom, there you go. There's your first sack. Mm-hmm. And then I think later on in the game, it was I think it was like sack number 4 or something like that. It was again another 3-step drop that the ball should have been out. And now a thing that I looked at as well is anytime you have a new quarterback come in, it's the rhythm of his cadence that throws guys off, because you had Kelsey twice in this game not snap the ball. So, I mean, you don't even snap the ball. So everybody gets called for a false start. But it was because he didn't snap the ball. So now what was the problem?
Can you explain that? Can I just ask, because, we hear that all the time, and I've been doing this a long time, but I'm always fascinated by when and every announcer says it with a new quarterback, that the cadence is different. You've been through that. What does that mean?
It's the rhythm of the cadence. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody has a different rhythm. And you want to get used to the rhythm, because there are times where all I need to hear is part of it. Because I know that if it's blue 88, for McNabb, for example, it was always blue 88, set hot. And I knew that once he said set, we're going off the set.
So you could go. You could go.
I'm going.
I never change it. Okay,
Now, if for any reason, if he said, if it was on 3, he would come up, blue 88, set hot, hot. And I knew on that second hut, once that second hut hit, boom, I'm gone.
Because you knew the third hut was going to be real fast. So you weren't going to have a false start.
You get used to the rhythm. And anytime there's another quarterback that comes in, if like Jeff Garcia came in, I'm like, Jeff, anytime we could be at lunch, I need to hear your cadence. Just yell it one time for me. Just because I can get used to the rhythm of it, because I'm not listening for the hut. If I listen for the hut, you're late. Right. You don't go on the hut. Nobody goes on the hut. You should be going on set. So you get used to the rhythm of when that's going to come, and then you go, and if I can't get his rhythm, then I'm going to take it out of your hands. I want Jamal Jackson right now to be my silent count. I'm going on Jamal. Because there were times that if we got game out there and we, like say if we were in no huddle, it was always on first sound. So he would just be like, Pro, I don't like that. I want the rhythm of it. So now I want to take it out of your hands. We're going on Jamal Jackson silent count, because at least I get a rhythm to it. And anytime quarterbacks come in there, you look at Matt Pryor, he was laid off the ball at least 2 or 3 times. I'm thinking that was his first start with Jalen. Not to make excuse for it. I mean, that's something that he should have been drilling all throughout the week, but he was laid off the ball. So what causes that? It's the rhythm of the quarterback's cadence.
Really, that almost gives me a newfound respect for like what the Saints do, having 2 quarterbacks coming in and out of the huddle all the time. Now, that's something that obviously you said they have to work on and drill in practice.
That has to get drilled.
Right.
I mean,
over and over again.
Over and over again, to the point, because there were times that I can tell that when McNabb started dragging out the cadence, that, all right, you know what, we're going back to 1. Because he, you know, you could tell like something started happening in the backfield. He's looking at safeties and he would blew it. Oh, hey, we're on 1. We're on 1. Set up, go. We change it. You know?
Right.
But you know all that.
Yeah.
Right.
So when, I'm curious because, you know, I've watched 1,000 practices, that has to be a little bit separate, right? Because when do you have time to take with your line and your quarterback and just work on cadence?
And that's the problem with what they're dealing with right now. You don't have time.
Yeah.
You know, with all the COVID restrictions and everything that's going on, you don't have time to do all of that. I mean, you have your team periods. Right now, all you have are your team periods. Because you have 9-on-7 still, you still do your nickel time. Anytime you get in with team, but you don't have a time where you can sit there with Jalen and just like, look, man, I need to hear your cadence. I need to hear your cadence. And if you can't hear your cadence, then I'm taking it out of your hands and I'm going off the center because at least now I have a rhythm.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. I wanted to get real quick into this. We've seen 2 good games from Jalen Hurts, improvement. If you're Dallas, right, and you're putting on your defensive coordinator cap, what kind of kryptonite are you trying to come up with for this kid?
I rush 3.
You rush 3?
I rush 3, and then because I mean you got times now where you got Smith, number 54. He's their known rusher, so I put 3 down and let Smith be your spy. You know, because they have times where they can mix and match you a little bit, where they can put 3 linebackers out there, get 3 defensive linemen. And, you know, they can get after it still.
Do you think it played into some of his strengths a little bit, the way Arizona came after him with so many people leaving either openings on the outside or if you rush him from one area, he can run to the other area?
Yeah, you get a little undisciplined. You get like, all right, you know what, I want to go. You feel like, all right, I've got to win. I got a good beat on the guy. And then next thing you know, he can jet upfield. He picks a hole. Because Jalen isn't like most of these quarterbacks that always escapes out the pocket a certain type of way. Right. He'll take whatever is there. So for me, I would tell my guys to be disciplined in your rush lanes, and then every now and then only rush 3, and then you get Smith to kind of back up, and then now you mirror what's going on. Sure. Especially depending on what you have at tackle. You know, if you're going with Matt Pryor, all right. Then if not, then you got who is the other guy? That's
Brett Toth.
Yeah. You know.
It was in play.
So
that's another position the Eagles can't afford injury.
You know, there you go.
I would say too that you need to do some disguise and late movement, because keep in mind last week the Cards are a very defined defense. Yes, they pressured a lot. I think they blitzed, and the way we charted NFL Films, it's 5 or more. There are some blitzes that are cataloged with 4, depending on who the 4th rusher is, but we catalog it as 5 or more. Yeah. So they blitzed 5 or more on 23 of Hurts dropbacks. That's a lot, okay?
Yeah, it's almost 50%.
But they're a single high defense. They play predominantly cover 1, which is man-to-man. So even if you blitz, if you know pretty much based on predictability and tendency that you're getting cover 1, you still know, hey, I have one-on-ones.
Right.
It's not a hard read for the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think you need to do some disguise, late movement. If you want to throw some pressure, I might think in terms of what we call zone exchange pressure, where you end up rushing 4, but the 4th is a linebacker or a DB, and you still have 7 in coverage, and you disguise it. Because what coverage is a numbers game.
Right.
You know, if you rush 4, you've got 7 in coverage. If you rush 5, you have 6 in coverage. You know, it's a numbers game. Sure. But you have to show something different. You have to make the quarterback, and Jalen Hurts, we know he's played well, but he's in his 3rd NFL start. There's a lot of things he hasn't seen. Right. You have to make Jalen Hurts think as he's dropping, not feel like, hey, yeah, I know I'm getting a blitz. They're showing me a blitz, and I got one-on-one, so I can get rid of the football before the pressure gets here.
I never felt, Greg, watching last week, that he ever was challenged enough where
he didn't seem indecisive.
No, that's the thing. And you know, boy, Vance Joseph is very aggressive.
You have to make him indecisive. Now, you know when he gets indecisive, he's going to run, so you then have to be prepared for that. Because the last thing you want, I don't know how many people watched on Amazon Prime last night, the 49ers-Cardinals game, you know, Kyler Murray is somewhat similar, and you know he's obviously a smaller guy. But when guys who have very good running ability get indecisive, they run. So you have to be prepared for that.
Right.
The problem is with this offensive line, though. I would zone, like you were saying, do zone blitz a couple times.
Yeah.
Where you got that defensive end come upfield a couple steps to make them declare, and then drop back into coverage, and then you bring a corner off of it. One of the sacks that came off last week is where you had a dual read on the. I have to draw it up for you, but it would be a dual read from the tackle where he took the wrong footwork from it. I mean, when you have an offensive line that makes like simple technique issues when it comes to picking up guys. And you kind of go ahead and give it back to them again just to see if they can pass the test.
I can't wait till we get you on that whiteboard, trench talk, all right, that grease board. Your fill-in last week, Trey Claus, did an excellent job of breaking it down.
All right, cool.
So you'll have to one-up that. All right, we're going to get into some of the wide receivers real quick, but first I want to stop and pause for a second to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars and, of course, the voice of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, if you go into Sky Motor Cars, remember to tell them that Adam and Jeff sent you. Certainly, Adam, you've been there before.
Yeah, in fact, if you ever need a car and you don't live in the Delaware Valley, just go to their website, SkyMotorCars.com. Order your car that way.
All right, let's move on and talk about some of the Eagles wide receivers who should be able to have a good day today if the offense is functioning. I want to laser focus in on Greg Ward because I find his story to be quite phenomenal. He caught 2 touchdowns. He's been a red zone last week. He's been a red zone weapon. We always like to say he's not going to beat a whole lot of people in a foot race. He's not the fastest guy, not the speediest guy, but his short area quickness and ability to leverage corners and get separation is probably the best on the team in that short area. He's very good at that. 6 touchdowns. 3 of his 6 touchdowns have come since Jalen Hurts has taken over at quarterback. So you see that a rhythm and a chemistry is starting to develop there.
Did you notice on during the game, the announcing team did mention that Jalen Hurts brought that up, his chemistry with Greg Ward.
Yeah.
And obviously Ward technically is a backup, and we know that Hurts was a backup in training camp, so they obviously work together, and boy, they have really good chemistry. And they also brought up, and I think there's just no question, Ward being a former college quarterback, I mean, absolutely helps him with understanding routes and so forth. So it's been a great story, and the crazy thing is, remember, he's been with the Eagles on and off since 2017, okay? He's been on the practice squad, he won't be anymore, obviously, over 30 weeks. And that includes, obviously, his rookie season where he was on the practice squad through the Super Bowl. And he's been waived 4 times. So you ask yourself, why in the world did they cut him so many times? Did they not see anything good from the guy?
And it's not
So
like
they made a mistake, obviously.
At this time last year, even going back to November, they had injuries at wide receiver. They were not exactly bursting with wide receiver talent all throughout the year last year, but it took quite a while for him to come up to the team. And as soon as he did, he made an impact. So like Adam says, it's a really nice story of development for Greg Ward, and you can say for the team as well, but it does make you wonder what took so long to get him there. With all the injuries that they had.
Look, as someone who evaluates college players, and I'm wrong just like everybody's wrong, even people who've been doing it a long time in the business.
Right.
He was a quarterback in college. You're asking him to make a transition, so you don't have any track record of what he is as a receiver.
Right.
So you're trying to see him develop, and you're trying to make a judgment and an evaluation as you watch him develop where he stands. And maybe, I'm sure there was some guy who said, hey, he can play right now, because he always had a good training camp. And then I'm sure there's another guy who says, you know what, yeah, he looks good in camp, but I'm just not sure. And these are all valid evaluations. So now that he plays well, it's easy to look back. It's always easy when you have access to the results. Then everybody who liked him says, oh, I told you so, and they act like they're geniuses.
Sure.
But you can only go based on the material at hand.
Right. I feel like if it was 1 year, Greg, you're making a very good point. They had him on the team for quite a while.
This is his 4th season with his club.
Right, no question. And he's turned out to be a very nice slot receiver. And you know what? There's always stories of players who either were undrafted, who, someone like Greg
Jordan Edelman,
Ward.
college quarterback.
Yeah. So I mean, it's always easy after the fact to say, "Oh, everybody blew it." Well, you know, it's not quite that simple.
No, but I think what Jeff's saying is, if you fast forward this thing, why is it taking them so long to figure out how good he is?
Right. It's almost like like I said, if it was year 1 or 2, I mean, you kept bringing him back, right, for a reason.
So you saw something
you had him
like.
on your practice squad for a reason.
Right.
He did have preseason game tape, and at a point last year, they were down like Alshon, they were down Desean, they were down 4 guys.
And they brought him up late in the season, so they had to. They had nobody else.
It just surprised me that it took him that long to get it.
Now, remember that what I was told, the former receivers coach who's no longer with the club, was not in favor of bringing him up until they had to. That's kind of what happened last year.
Former wide receiver. Which one? Which one of the 5 former wide receivers?
Yeah. It was the guy who was there last year, Walsh.
Trey, how much do you think him playing quarterback in college and just understanding routes, concepts, and leverage has helped him as a wide receiver?
I think you know where to get, and then also how to make your route quarterback friendly. Like the one touchdown that he had, his first touchdown, where he was like, all right, he was getting ready to go out of bounds, but you turn back, bam, here you go. Nice friendly target for you to hit, and there you go. Extremely athletic. I think that really helps understanding where he needs to be when it comes to running some of these shorter routes just to keep the chains moving. So I think all of that plays into it.
Any reason, Greg, why you think he's been kind of the, you go back to the Green Bay game, he catches a touchdown, 4th and 22? Was it on the?
You're talking about
over?
Oh yeah, where Hurts left the pocket.
Yeah. It seems like he's Hurts.
He was just running his route and kept going. I mean, there was nothing special there. I think the touchdown that Trey referred to, that was the 40-yarder, which was actually, he made a route adjustment, and that was actually a really nice play by both Hurts and Ward, because Ward I believe it was almost like speed option, to the left, and. Hurts did not think the throw was there to Ward within the timing of the route, and then Ward was getting to the sideline, so all he did was turn back. But Hurts kind of saw that, and he threw that with actually with timing and anticipation.
Right.
But again, Ward has turned into being a very nice slot receiver. He predominantly works the short areas, sometimes intermediate. The touchdown you mentioned was not necessarily a vertical route by design.
Right.
But. He's turned into a nice player.
It's reliable.
Yeah, I think the reliability,
player.
you know what? You brought up Edelman and how he was to Tom, was just like kind of a safety valve you can always find. And
also former college quarterback.
And by the way, even in today's NFL, very rarely, and Adam knows this, are slot receivers drafted high, unless you think a guy's special.
Right.
The only one who went high, and he's actually not drafted, is Andy Isabella.
Right.
But he didn't play really a lot of slot in college. In fact,
no, he didn't. And he also ran under a 4.4.
Yes, that's why he was drafted high.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of slot receivers.
There
are a lot of slot receivers in the league who are either late round picks or free agents who have done extremely well. Cole Beasley was not a high pick.
Right.
I believe he was drafted at him, right? But he
by
was
Dallas,
late. But late.
Yeah.
It certainly
Wes
fits.
Welker, you just go through all
the
I mean,
there's a lot of these slot
generally
guys
smaller, short area guys,
Right.
but they're so valuable because they're dependable on third down. Now in the red zone, you wouldn't think a guy as small as Greg Ward, but I think the one thing we've gotten out of this is that he clearly playing quarterback is impactful.
And it's an interesting dynamic, Jeff, because in the NFL, teams probably play in 11 personnel over 60% of their snaps. It's actually decreased a bit because teams have played a lot more with 2 tight ends and some with fullbacks.
Right.
But, I mean, teams clearly play out of 11 personnel, meaning 3 wide receivers, over 50% of their snaps. So you would think a slot receiver would be deemed valuable, but that's not the way it is at draft time.
Correct. You're right that they tend to be 3rd, 4th round picks. Because they're not always on the field all the time. Absolutely. This is kind of a homecoming for Greg Ward a little bit. He's from Tyler, Texas, which is about an hour and a half of Dallas, but Dallas is so big that actually makes that a Dallas suburb. Jalen Reagor from the Dallas area, so there are several Eagles who are from that area. And, of course, I think this will be a game where if you're going to see, I think, a Jalen Reagor breakout, you would think because of Dallas, their secondary, and the rhythm that you're starting to see.
And this past game, I definitely want to hear what you guys thought, but I thought, based on what I saw and what I heard, this is his best game as Eagle. It may not show against Arizona in numbers, but from explosiveness and route running and just what you thought you would see from him, I think this is what you want.
I couldn't agree more. I thought that's what the tape showed. I know the numbers. I think he was 5 for 49.
Yeah.
But just watching the tape and watching every play, and that's while you watch every play, is he looked like an explosive athlete this week.
Jalen
He
Reagor.
should have had the touchdown on where he ran by Peterson. He looked like an explosive he looked like the player that I saw on tape.
Right.
That when the Eagles drafted him, I said, hey, that's a good pick.
Yeah,
Because
you like that pick as
I
well.
did like
Yeah.
that pick
Right.
because this kid can run. And actually, I thought he was a little bit better route runner than I heard others say. That, that's debatable. Smart, reasonable people can disagree on that. But I thought he was a little bit better route runner than he was given credit for by a lot of other people. But this game, to me, I watched the tape and was, hey, this kid's an explosive athlete.
And you feel for the kid a little bit. He obviously played his last year at TCU with a quarterback who was not very good. And then obviously he comes into the Eagles, he gets hurt, comes back right at the time that Carson Wentz himself is really struggling. So now he's finally kind of getting healthy and getting his rhythm and flow at a time where the quarterback is also starting to play, is playing well for him as well. So that's why I kind of think you look at today's game and you see the opportunity for both the quarterback and the receiver to put it all
And
together.
if you look at the production that the Cowboys give up against receivers, they give up an enormous amount of production.
Yeah.
And yes, they've improved, but it's still fifth worst in the National Football League. Talk about touchdown yardage and receptions. There's an opportunity here. And the Eagles, the one thing they have is they got a lot of receivers, and they have a bunch of them that could run. Boy, isn't it amazing this time last year? They had nobody could run.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of guys who could run.
Just out of curiosity, when you went to play, when the Eagles were playing Jacksonville, or you were going back to Florida, did that ever register with you? Because I do feel like the Dallas and the Texas guys in general enjoy going back to the home state and playing because it's such a huge thing there. Did you ever get that?
No.
No, I don't think you would.
Yeah,
Just a game.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
just
didn't
go
even
play.
grow up in the outskirts of a football city.
no, I really
Okay.
didn't.
Did you ever notice that your teammates, though, would get a little fired up to go play in their hometowns?
I
at all?
really didn't
You didn't notice
pay
anything.
attention to it. Yeah.
I got one great story out of you today, so
Sorry, I didn't pay much attention to it.
Cadence. It was cadence.
Yeah.
I got the cadence,
Yeah.
and then we got the Dallas week. You at least acknowledge you understood the Dallas
yeah.
week in Philadelphia. All right, so I'm actually plus one here if you didn't take that one away. All right, be sure to check out our friends at Philadelphia Sports Nation for all of your latest Philadelphia sports news. They're covering the Eagles, the Flyers, the Phillies, the Sixers, and the Union, and their goal is to enhance your experience as a Philadelphia sports fan with all of their great coverage and content. You can find them on social media, on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation, or at their website, phlsportsnation.com. You ready for some trench talk?
Yeah.
All right,
I
no.
hope we're talking about 68.
We're going to get into Pryor, and I'm going to let you get to that grease
Oh,
board.
Pryor. How about 68?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if we didn't start off
course.
with, now I called him Mount Mailata last week because he's a mountain of a man, but I think we may need to call him Chef Mailata because he was serving up some pancakes against the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
Putting guys on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah?
And
So tell me
lifting them
what
up
you saw.
and throwing them. That's what.
Yeah, this man was displacing people.
Marcus Golden probably doesn't want to see Mailata again. Oh, my goodness
He
gracious.
was the victim of a couple of Mailata blocks. Trey, what stood out to you about Jordan Mailata?
I think that he's starting to come around. I think that he got a little fancy in this game and was late with his hands a couple times.
in pass pro or
Yeah, in pass protection, where
yeah.
he started flashing his hands a little bit.
Yep.
I felt like he overset his guys a couple times, where he ended up getting beat inside. Because he had the one sack that was given up because he overset his guy. He had a defensive end, had his inside foot back. Jordan Mailata took 4 kicks instead of 3, which now allows that defensive end to take you inside, which he did and gave up a sack. I know a lot of people got a little hyped about some of the inside zone runs that he went in there and crushed the defensive end, but they were actually losses for him. Yeah, because all right.
Yeah,
So,
no, join up.
all right.
There you go.
So here we go. All right.
Sets it up.
So because a lot of people really don't understand this, and they're like, oh yeah, he just got the win here. All right. So here you go. You have a D end, and then you have a linebacker out here. Okay. So now you have a defensive tackle here. Have a tackle here, in, all right? So now let's say if we have a linebacker here, all right? So now, if we're running inside zone,
They ran a lot of.
yeah, which they're gonna run, you have to understand that there are cutback lanes. So if the running back goes here, we probably have, he's gonna block here, we're running a combination block here to here, he has man, all right? So now the running back is gonna see this, now he's gonna wanna cut back here. Well, the problem with this is you have to block cutback to leave that B gap open. You understand what I'm saying? So if this defensive end crosses your face and gets in that B gap,
That's not a win for the
That's
tackle.
not a win for the tackle.
Right.
So a lot of people are like, oh my God, look at what he just did to this defensive end. It was awesome. That's actually a loss for him. What he has to do is cut this defensive end off. And anytime you have a two look, you should expect for this defensive end to try to cross your face. That's offensive line 101, something that should be drilled day in and day out. And because he let that D end cross his face, that was actually a loss by him.
Right, so even if he's drilling him to the ground,
I
he's
don't care
clogging
if
up
he's
the backside
Yeah,
gap,
you drilled
right?
him into the ground, into the hole.
Right. Okay.
Which ended up being
Didn't
a
do it in the
stop.
right area. Okay.
So, you know, yeah, the running back tried to cut back to it. Well, yeah, you drilled the guy into the hole. It looked awesome, but actually he made the tackle, which stopped. So you have to play that defensive end is going to try to cross your face. So what he has to do is say, all right, I have a two look. You better take good footwork, and you got to get in there to cut that guy off, because if he's there, now we want that running back to be able to come up in here. Because if you go back and look at that play, if he makes that block, the running back is to the house.
Yeah, in fact, when you drawing that up makes me realize, I think of those 3 touchdowns that he has that are very long. Whoa!
Oh,
Yeah, there we go.
Good
The
catch.
White
Well done.
Greensburg cannot handle this show.
Yeah.
I should have been a receiver.
He's not. That's a little guy. There, but good catch though on that.
No, you know what Trey was saying is one thing I learned from offensive line coaches years and years ago is when you run the zone run game, unless it's straight inside zone, but if it's mid zone, outside zone, you're trying to stretch the front side and cut or seal the back side.
Correct.
So what Trey just spoke about is you've got to cut or seal the back side. You can't let that defensive end into the middle.
Yeah. Because you're done.
Yeah.
You know, and it looked impressive.
Yeah.
It looked awesome.
Right.
Yeah, you drove the guy to the ground, but you drove him to the hole.
Right.
So, so then let's talk about another play real quick, since I'm here, because a lot of people don't understand this as well.
So yeah, thanks for stopping by the way.
But it was cool. I thought, it was good that he got the guy. So, all right. So here we go. Let's talk about that safety real quick, because we just had this. We talked about it earlier, all right?
Yeah.
So now you have a tight end in protection, okay? So here's the tight end. You got end. You have a defensive tackle here, end, all right? So let's say we have a Mike linebacker here. He's going to be our Mike linebacker backer over here, all right? So once the tight end is in protection, you have to understand that we're in man protection right now. So if a safety comes down there, if they make the Mike call, that right tackle needs to say, you know what, you have 3 different calls you can make. You can say, all right, if that guy comes out here, it's going to be a fan, all right? So fan calls mean that tight end is going to take the widest guy. We're coming to take the defensive end, okay? Now, if that guy just sits up in there, if he stays up in there, then now we just say, all right, solid. All right, so now if we make a solid call, then now that's saying, all right, you know what? We have end and this right here, okay? So now that says, all right, if he comes upfield, I'm going to stay right here, because if he comes, I have to block him. All right, so now let's say if that guy comes in here and he says he comes over here, then now you have to say, all right, squeeze. You're going to go a squeeze call, and then now you coming down in here to take that for whatever. So when you go back and you look at that safety, all right, and you come back and you say, all right,
And all this is done at the line of scrimmage,
all
right?
of this is being done at the line of scrimmage
Right,
real quick. Once that Mike call comes out, you
Right.
should know, all right, look, this is what's going to happen. So now we come into this play, in which calls the safety, everybody for whatever reason slid left, all right? And then you got this safety sitting down there. The tight end has the end. So now once that guy comes
Nobody
in there
has him.
clean, nobody was there to block him.
Right.
This should have been picked up. This was an extremely easy blitz that should have been picked up, and I don't understand,
Is that the responsibility then of the Pro Bowl Center to have made sure that everybody was?
That's the responsibility of the offensive line coach.
Okay.
Saying, look, this is a point of emphasis. This is, if we going into the week knowing that, all right, this is what we need to do, you need to, this is.
So when you see it, it shouldn't be a surprise to
No,
anybody on the O-line.
this is 101.
Right.
This is offensive line 101, man protection. I mean, this is not something that's going to be so drastic that should catch you off guard. You should know if the tight end is there, man protection. It's
That's what you're describing as a fairly basic fundamental.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
One more real quick.
Yeah.
Since we're here. Just one more real quick. All right, and I'm going to just real quick, because a lot of people talk about this Matt Pryor sack right here, okay? So we had a defensive tackle here. We had a nose guard here. So we had a guy here. We had 43 was here. We had 46 was here, I believe. And then you had Jordan Hicks up here, all right? So now, anytime, and this is just for anybody that's looking at this game, anytime you see that back get out of there right away, you should know right there that we're in man protection. Because if the back is in there, then now you can call slide or whatever. So now what happened here is that Kelsey said Mike 58. So he made a Mike called 58. So now if you know that you're in man protection, who he's talking to is the right guard. And what he is saying is, look, we're going to take defensive tackle and number 58, because I think there was a guy out here. There was a 3 technique out here. So when he's saying, all right, man, Mike 58, what he is saying, hey, Kelsey is saying, hey, we're going to take this defensive tackle and number 58, center and right guard. Now, what that does is that puts the right tackle in duel. So now he has dual responsibilities. And what he has to do, he has to take the most dangerous out of these two, 46 in the defensive end. So what we're banking is that one of these guys are going to go with the running back. Okay, because if not, then you just hit the running back out in the flat.
Because then nobody's playing him.
Yeah, because nobody's playing him.
Right.
But the problem is, and this is the problem, and this is what you have to do, you cannot step left. You cannot step left. You have to set vertical on this. You have to set back. You have to keep eyes on the inside guy, but you have to set the widest guy. Because what happened here is Matt Pryor stepped left. Well, 46 took off with the running back. He can't, I don't care if you use same boat. You're not getting back for that defensive end.
Right.
And there you go. Sack, fumble.
Well, Adam and Greg, I hope you guys were paying attention.
I was
You're going to
typing
be
some
tested.
notes.
Yeah.
There
I was
will be a
typing some
test
notes.
administered by Professor Trey.
No, 'cause
solid.
It's interesting because
I just love talking like
Yeah.
that.
their run game was not as good as we expected.
No.
And Trey just pointed out why.
Yeah. You look back, you go back and you look at some of these runs, it was because you didn't get to your second guy, you didn't get to your linebacker fit, you didn't have the cutoff block.
All correctable, though.
All correctable stuff, I mean, but it's...
But every week we're saying something else
Yeah,
is
it's
correctable.
still the same stuff. I mean, you're getting beat with the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
And if you want to know why Miles Sanders does not, other than several nice big runs, hasn't had the season we expected, right there is why.
I mean, we expected he had 17 carries. Was that the most he's had this year?
I thought it was
He hasn't
either
had-
the most or tied for the most.
He certainly hasn't had 20 in a game.
And he only had 64 yards,
Yeah.
and we expected that if he got 17 carries, he'd be in the
would've thought
100-yard
about
range.
Yep.
Right, definitely. Real quick to get back to Mailata. Fair criticism notwithstanding, one of the issues we had with him earlier in the year, you don't know your own strength. You are an enormous man.
Yeah.
Are you at least starting to see him start to recognize his power
Yes.
and assert his will?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. You know, he's definitely getting there. But, you know, one of the things that I would drill on Mailata is don't get fancy. Don't all of a sudden start getting cute. You know what I'm saying? Because that's going to cause problems. You know, when you start feeling yourself and you start feeling like, oh yeah, you get out there and start trying to do little cute stuff, that's when you start finding yourself in trouble where you're late with your hands. When you say, all right, you know what, I'm gonna be cute and flash my hands. That's cute. Man, listen, you know, you let your hands go when you have to. Other than that, you don't sit up there and play all these games with him, you know, because there was one time where he flashed his hands, then not a defensive end all in your chest because you're late.
Right. Now, he'll get a dose of Randy Gregory, I want to say, today. And who else? Alden Smith?
He'll
will
get
line up
Gregory
across
and
from him?
Smith predominantly, once in a while Lawrence, because they do move around.
Right.
But what they like to do in their, particularly when it's long yardage, you know, a pass rush situation, is they'll put all three on the field.
Okay.
And Smith is the guy, Alden Smith is normally the guy who goes inside. It's not 100%, sometimes Gregory, but more often than not is Alden Smith going inside, and he normally stands up as a 3 technique.
And how is he? He got off to a really hot start.
Well, he
It
had
was
4
the story
sacks in one game.
Right. So he's just kind of come back to earth now.
Yeah, I mean, but he's still, I mean, as Trey will tell you, he's got a lot of talent.
Yes.
I mean, you can't just say, oh, okay, he hasn't been great the last month, so therefore let's not worry about him.
Right.
He's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, this D-line has some, like, Alden Smith, and of course, Gregory is, when he's healthy.
Gregory is just a sad story because
Yeah,
I love that kid coming out of Nebraska, as many people did, as Adam remembers.
Yeah.
He just looked the part. He moved well. He can bend. He's flexible.
Sure.
He's got that Gumby movement to him. He's 6'4". He's got length. But obviously he's had off-the-field issues and substance abuse issues, and he hasn't been able to play with any consistency.
Right, but when he's on the field, are you seeing...
He can be, he looks the part.
On the other side, you got DeMarcus Lawrence, who is a two-time Pro Bowler. I think he only has 5.5 sacks this year, but he does have, at least from the first game, where he was lined up, I want to say against Lane for most of the game. And Lane, I think, came out of that game, but he wound up having a sack. I think he had 2 quarterback hits in that game, 3 tackles for a loss. And now he's got Matt Pryor that he's going to wind up lining up across a lot. So this is a pretty formidable, at least D-line. I know they're beat up on the inside, but at least from a pass rush standpoint, I think that they can give the Eagles some problems.
Yeah. Yeah, they can give you some problems. And like we said earlier, there are going to be times where they'll come out there and just have 3 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers out there, and you need to understand who's your known rusher.
Yeah.
And for them, it's always going to be Jalen Smith is the known rusher. He's going to be your guy that if you get him down in there 54, if you see him down in that mix, they run games with him, they blitz him, he's going to be their known rusher when they get that 3 linebacker front.
All right, we have a question from Joe Patterson from our YouTube channel, and he wants to know what's going to happen at center in 2021 and beyond. He says, I love Jason Kelce to death, but I don't want to watch his body fall apart when we have no chance. I wouldn't say the Eagles have no chance, but I think it's fair to say, because each of the last 2 years, I think, Adam, he has taken some time to contemplate whether he's going to come back. And the nature of that position is it's pretty grueling. And so do you see the Eagles' backup plan or forward plan, I should say, as moving Sayamalu to center and then finding another left guard, or just finding a new center?
Well, I can tell you this. You and I know this. They drafted Sayamalu to be his replacement, and then all of a sudden, Jason kind of revived his career, turned it around, and Isaac's been a very solid football player at guard. So it's possible that they do look to draft a center, but because they have so many needs right now, first of all, Jason has to decide whether he wants to come back. Now then the Eagles would have to decide what do they want to pay him that he's willing to accept.
Right.
Because all their cap challenges, there are a lot of guys that are going to be humbled by some of the money that they're going to be offered in pay cuts. They're going to have to make a decision whether they want to come back or not.
Yeah.
And then I think you have Nate Herbig is the easy guy right now, because there was one particular formation where they had Kelce lined up out there, wide receiver. I don't know, it was some crazy formation that they had earlier in the year, and Nate Herbig was your center at the time. So
he started his career last year with the Eagles as a backup center.
Yeah, so you have Isaac and you have Nate. So depending on if Brandon Brooks comes back healthy, maybe Nate Herbig is your center.
What have you seen from him this season?
Who?
Nate, 67 Herbig.
Herbig, I think that he's solid. At times at guard, I think sometimes you can see the center in him, just because he changes with his post foot at times, which is, for us, if I'm in a right-handed stance and I have my left foot up, that's going to be my post foot. You never really want to drop that foot. At center, they can always drop whichever foot they want because, whichever side they slide to, it is what it is. And you see that with him at times when he's over at the right side or even on the left, he'll drop his post foot, which creates a lane to the quarterback, depending on whichever side.
How do you think he'll handle zero techniques?
Oh, he has the size.
Yeah.
He's way bigger than Kelce.
He probably needs to drop, Greg. It's funny. He needs to drop some weight.
Yeah.
It's not a secret. He's put on too many pounds this year.
Yeah.
But
that was a concern coming out of Stanford.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
So there's also the Jack Driscoll part of the equation, because when they drafted him, they wanted to start him off at tackle, but they felt that he had the ability and the athleticism to play guard long term or in the future. So perhaps you could see a Sayamalu move to center and then Jack Driscoll slide
That's
in
one,
there
possibly.
left guard.
What we had heard is Driscoll needed to get stronger physically to play inside. If he does that in the offseason, sure.
Yeah.
This offseason, for a lot of either younger players, is enormous.
Well, we're hoping it's a relatively normal offseason, so they can be in the weight room.
Yeah. Yep.
It's tough to deal with guys through Zoom.
Yeah.
So
sure. Now, Jason Kelce, before we move on, has always been kind of the anomaly for what at least an Andy Reid / Doug Peterson offense normally features at center. It was not until Howard Mudd came along, who liked the lighter, shorter, faster guys, that you saw a change in philosophy. A lot of people felt when Doug took over that he was going to go back to what Andy liked, which is the mauling type of center, right? I mean, when you played, you usually played with a bigger center than Jason Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, you had Hank Fraley Buns and Jamal Jackson. Who else did? I mean, even going back to Steve Everett, Bubba Miller. I mean, those are all big guys.
Steve
right?
Everett.
Yeah,
Wow.
Steve Everett he was wild. Yeah.
Who's the different cat, huh?
Yeah, he was different, man.
Who's the center in Kansas City right now? Is it Ryder? Is that his name? Or is he the guard?
They've had
they have a
so many
bigger-
changes
They've had a lot of
on their
injuries, right?
front, yeah.
Yeah, they had Mitch Morse for quite a while. But
Well,
they
he's been in
signed
Buffalo
him.
the last couple of years.
Signed a big contract in Buffalo.
And he was a left tackle in college.
Mitch Morse was?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, very interesting. It'll be interesting to watch not only today, the offensive line, how they do against this front, but of course what happens in the future. Actually, Trey, I wanted to ask you also, after 3 years now, do you feel like you know what Matt Pryor is and isn't?
Yeah, I have a good feel for Matt Pryor. I'm telling you that now, a lot of people, you're going to see, they'll go back and you show those clips where he got blown by, where he's laid off the ball. But then a lot of people don't look at the clips where he took a really nice set, shot his hands, was in really good balance. I think that the biggest part for Matt Pryor has just been a decline in his technique. And that's something that you just can't get around, and there's no hiding it. When you get out there and if your technique isn't tight, if you're taking the right footwork, just look at how he handled that dual read. If you step left, if you take that one step to the wrong way, it creates a problem. Just like with Jordan Mailata when he took 4 kicks instead of 3, you give up the inside. So there were times where he took a nice set, shot his hands, it looked beautiful. But then everybody highlights those 3 or 4 plays where he was laid off the ball should have gotten out, but then, it's a problem.
Trey, you had said earlier when we were talking about Jordan Mailata that the one issue you had with him from your tape study was his hands. And obviously we know about, as you've outlined for us many times, Jeff Stoutland teaches hand usage a little bit differently than Juan Castillo did. So when it gets to Mailata, where do you think his hands are at this point? Are they where they need to be or not?
They're coming around. There are times where he shoots them, but you have to really trust it. You have to get to the point where all right, I'm going to let my hands go now. And when he's oversetting the guy with his inside foot back, that's telling me that you're not really ready to shoot your hands yet. Because you've already took too many kicks when then you should have on this particular play. You should have stopped at 3 and shot your hands. It wouldn't have even been a problem.
All right, well, I want you to know Damon Paoli from our message board says that he loves it when you're breaking down and talking play designs on the grease board. And we have a couple of people on the message board who are wondering if you'd like to be the next Eagles offensive line coach. So consider this your audition tape,
Stoutland
Trey.
will never go anywhere. They love him.
They do love him. But just in case, Trey's here and any other NFL team who might be watching,
There you go.
there's the master right there.
I don't know, but do you want to coach?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what I said. Consider
You really want to
this
coach?
the resume.
Yeah. Okay.
Trey would
College
like to
or
coach.
pro? Pro? Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to recruit?
Nah.
You know how this town is. Everybody wants Seth Joyner as the defensive coordinator.
Right,
They want
exactly,
Trey
right,
as the
right,
offensive
right.
line coach.
Yeah.
You know how it is. They
I
want
got some things coming down the line.
All right.
B. Doc as the
We never
secondary
know.
Oh,
coach.
boy. All right.
I love Seth, but I don't know if he'd be a great recruiter.
All right, if you're enjoying today's show, the bright lights, the fancy graphics, the quality sound, it's all thanks to our team at Rebel Hill Productions. Reach out to Zach and Jim today for a free consultation to discuss your digital strategy and content needs. You can email them. Their address is info@rebelhillconsulting.com, or you can call them at 215-668-8498. Once again, the email is info@rebelhillconsulting.com, or call them at 215-668-8498. That's Rebel Hill Productions. Do a great job. We thank them for their quality work. Let's flip the script here as we talk trenches and go into the defensive line. Mentioned no Josh Sweat today, no Derek Barnett. That kind of leaves a gaping hole there at the right defensive end. So you have to expect Vinny Curry will start, and you'll see some Joe Osman, maybe some Jannard Avery situationally. But I also think it kind of ratchets up the responsibility on Brandon Graham to kind of snap out of his streak here. He has not had a sack in 7 straight games. Yes, he does create pressure.
And the interior guys. And then here's another question. Do they line up Malik Jackson at DN?
We could see some
I
Malik
think you'll
Jackson.
see that.
Yeah.
They're also playing against 2 offensive tackles that theoretically you should be able to handle. Now, obviously, the Cowboys know that too, and they structure their offense in such a way that they don't expose those guys too often, because they'll have Steele at right tackle and Knight at left tackle, and they've been playing for the last number of weeks, and they're obviously backup players, and they know that. So, but obviously there will be 3rd and long situations in the game, but overall they'll try to structure their offense so they don't expose their tackles.
Right. Now, Brandon had 7 sacks this year. He has 12 tackles for a loss, which is 6th most among NFL edge rushers. So as we always say about Brandon, you don't always measure him in sacks because he does a lot of other stuff to create disruption. But I am curious, Trey, because I heard you talking about this with Derek Gunn on Grilling the Birds on our Inside the Birds platforms. Of Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham, of the 3 Pro Bowlers, which one do you feel most deserved the Pro Bowl nod?
Man, I mean, when it comes to Kelsey and Fletcher, man, they already have those names. So they're the guys, they're going to get it regardless of the season that they have now.
Right, but I'm asking you, who played at the most Pro Bowl level?
None of them.
None of them. I thought you might
None
say
of them
that.
played at a Pro Bowl level.
I
didn't think that Kelsey played at a Pro Bowl level. I thought that there were a lot of mistakes, a lot of non-switch-offs that were made in this game. I think that there were way too many snap issues. I did not think, and I'm pretty sure if you ask Kelsey if he played at a Pro Bowl level, he'll tell you, he'll be honest, he knows that his game this was not one of his best seasons. Even when you look at BG, 7 sacks.
Yeah.
When you're measured by your sacks, now it's cool that you got in for the first time. But when you're looking at the numbers, what you're judged by, and then Fletcher Cox, when you look at Fletcher, I felt like Fletcher is dominant when he wants to be, and that's something that I've talked to him about before as well. But, he's disruptive when he wants to be, but, was it at a Pro Bowl level? Yeah, maybe over these past couple games, but not throughout the entire season.
Greg, when you watch the tape and you see Fletcher Cox, compare him to 5 years ago, what's the biggest difference?
Well, I think Trey kind of hit it on the head. I never know. I never speak to a guy's competitive level unless it's blatantly obvious that there's not a high competitive level, which is rare. But Fletcher Cox makes splash plays. And when he makes splash plays, you go, oh my God, this guy is just absolutely special. But for whatever reason, and like I said, I can't speak to what's in his head, I can't speak to, for whatever reason, he's not a dominant player snap after snap. But I will say this, and I think Trey can speak to this, most teams still treat him that way. So when the Eagles line up, let's say, in their nickel front, where they have 2-3 techniques and 2 wide nines, which is a pretty common nickel front for the Eagles, most teams will slide their center to Cox.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because he's Fletcher Cox and can wreck a play at any given time.
Right.
But he's more of a splash individual player at this point in his career than I think consistent down in, down out player. Wouldn't you agree, Trey?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are times when you can look at Fletcher, and I mean, I'm sitting there like blown away by how athletic he is, how powerful he is, how strong, how quick he can get to the edge, and how he can use that one-hand stab and leverage when he wants to. But then there are times when it's kind of like, I don't want to kill you right now. And I need him to always have that mentality all the time. And when it comes to Kelsey, I'm like, y'all just gave up 59 sacks. I don't think anybody on that offensive line is deserving of going to the Pro Bowl after 59 sacks.
Yeah, that is kind of questionable.
But, hey, when you already have that name, you're going off of name right now.
Reputation.
So cool.
It's a lot
man.
of it.
Adam, which one of those 3 guys? You talked about some people, it's going to be a humbling offseason. Any one of those 3 guys that you think is real iffy to be back next year?
I would have to say Kelsey, just because the age, and he, as you pointed out, and you and I know this, each year he kind of reflects and see where he is physically, whether he's become a father, whether he wants to play again.
Right.
He's been a great Eagle, just amazing Eagle, 6th-round pick. He certainly will be Eagles Hall of Famer. Then some people have talked about this because of the amount of Pro Bowl votes and his level of play that he should be at least considered for the Hall of Fame. That's pretty strong, but he's one where because this is the other thing, they've got to get younger, significantly younger, and the cap is going to tell them they're going to have to get younger.
There's going to be some hard decisions here.
Yeah, exactly.
For a lot of positions, not just Kelsey.
First time in Howie Roseman's career as a general manager, there are actually cap issues that, quite frankly, are going to be unbelievably painful for them. And they're just going to have, the owner's got to say, listen, I see what the issues are. Let's just get younger and suck it up and just flip the script.
Yeah.
Get younger.
And by the way, getting compliant with the cap itself, there'll be some tough decisions, may not, but there are also going to be some easy decisions as far as money. But you can't just be compliant. You need to have a little money in case you want to shore up some holes in free agency. Not that the Eagles are
it's going to be hard.
It's
going to be hard.
It's going to be really hard.
Well, that's why there's going to be some tough decisions.
Yeah.
And Adam follows this more closely than I do, but it wouldn't surprise me if there were a couple of names that we wouldn't think about that end up getting cut.
The only one and they haven't told me this, but I have a hard time believing they would walk away from Brandon Graham because he's still playing at a high level. Mm-hmm. And he means so much to everybody else. I just can't see them walking away from him. But anyone else, I mean,
do you think there's any chance, and I'm not making a judgment here, you think there's any chance that they walk away from Fletcher Cox?
The problem is because there's restructures, there's so much dead money.
Okay.
Oh my God, he's one of the, not every player, by the way, says yes to restructures.
Of course.
They went to a lot of players left off season, and some players turned them down, some said yes. But that's the problem is these so-called dummy years, when the guy's off the roster, it's dead money on your cap.
Yeah.
Or when you structure, you have the contract's extended, or the guy there's no money. It's just.
Do you think they basically told us
money.
what their decision is on Zach Ertz at this point?
It would be hard to bring Zach back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he won't be back, but it would be hard to bring him back.
Because obviously they chose not to extend him.
Well, they tried to, but Zach said no.
Right, but they chose to extend him at what they viewed as a team-friendly level.
Right. And at 30 years old, you've told us he has not looked the same. Not quite the same as he once did. And they love Dallas Goedert. And by the way, Dallas Goedert is eligible to have his contract extended after the season. He'll have played 3 years.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's going to be a stud.
They're not going to me, bring back Zach Ertz at the expense of Dallas Goedert.
No, you can't pay two tight ends.
No,
you just can't do that, especially this team right now.
Yeah.
You do also wonder, I mean, if they are going to go ahead and take one of the most massive the most massive dead cap hit in the sport's history, if they would even put the same offer back on the table at this point for Zach Ertz that he had turned down. Because as you mentioned, this is a new realm that they're entering, and they may have to make even more difficult decisions.
I'm told they have not had any discussion since mid-August, and that was it.
Yeah.
They had a definite difference of opinion of what Zach's worth was.
Who's Zach's agent again?
Steve Carrick.
And you said, is he the same as Kelsey's agent? Did you say?
No.
He's the same as Jason
Edwards'
agent, same as a couple of guys on the team.
Okay.
But not
Steve at Grugé Hill.
But
he's the tight end agent. He did the biggest contract for a while in NFL history. Is Hooper's contract.
Right, that's who it was. You said
he has Dalton Schultz as well of Dallas, who play today. So this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Eagles in more ways than one.
All right, it will be. Let's get going and move on to our Manscaped Man of the Game segment.
This is going to be a good one.
Building.
This is actually good. This is going to be interesting because I'll be interested to see what Greg's is because mine is a guy that I think has done well against Dallas, and I know Dallas has told me he's a marked man.
Well, why don't we start off with you then, Adam? Who is your Manscaped Man of the Game?
From talking to the Cowboys for a couple of years about 88 Goedert, they think he's special. They haven't seen a guy as big as he is other than Travis Kelce obviously move like this. And he had that great game. I know the Eagles got blown out last year, but they pointed out that play over the middle where they could not understand how he caught that football. Again, the Eagles got blown out, but he had a big game. I think he's going to have a big game. And again, the Cowboys give up a ton of production in the secondary. And this to me is a Dallas Goedert game because there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game.
I remember 2 years ago he had a heck of a touchdown against them.
Yards called back.
And
what a bad call.
It was a terrible call.
I know.
75-yard touchdown.
That was a great
awful call.
Yeah.
Awful call.
No, but last year, I'm almost sure it was last year, he had that 28-yard touchdown in the game. They ended up getting blown out.
Over the middle.
It was against cover 3. It was a deep over out versus cover 3. Yeah.
Right. All right, so Dallas Goedert, your Manscaped Man of the Game. You'll have your eyes on him today, Adam.
88?
Greg Cosell, who was your Manscaped Man of the Game, if you remember it?
Well, I do remember it. I'm old, but I do remember it.
Not as far as you know.
You know what? I'm going to pick Jalen Reagor.
Okay.
Because I really liked what I saw on tape last week.
Yeah.
And I think that this secondary we know is beatable. We spent time on that. We don't need to talk about it anymore right now. And I just think he's ready for a bigger numbers game with some explosive plays. I'm not saying he's going to get 10 for 150,
right?
But I think there could be some explosive plays here. Sure. And plus, we know that they like the jet sweeps and the reverses. I mean, I think there's going to be plays to be made.
Do they get beat on those, Greg? Dallas's defense on jet sweeps and end arounds and stuff like that?
They can. I mean, those hurt. a lot of teams because they really cause issues for second-level defenders. Yeah. But I just feel like Jalen Reagor is ready to have a quote-unquote breakout game, whatever that means numbers-wise. Sure. So I'm going to go with Jalen Reagor.
All right, so Adam picks a guy named Dallas. You pick a guy from the Dallas area. Waxahachie, I believe, is the name of the town that he's from. Do you want to continue with the Dallas theme here? Anything? Yeah. No, I'll get to you in a second. I'll get to you. You always round us up. You're the cleanup hitter. My guy is going to be who did I pick? Oh yeah, Jake Elliott, the kicker. I think this is big because I really do think this is going to be a close game.
Special teams.
It's a meaningful game.
You know how bad the special teams have been this season?
Yeah,
I know.
He's got to have a big game. He's got a lot of attempts.
If this game comes down to a field goal or even an extra point, this kid's got to come through, and you can't say right now.
I have it as a 3-point game.
Who's going to be your holder?
That is a great question. It's probably going to be the punt. No, I mean, because Cam, we expect
Cam's back. Yeah, Cam's back. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah. So Cam's going to be in play?
Yeah, he's going to be expected to play. Yeah, because they didn't sign a punter.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking about how this game tends to always be kind of a neck-and-neck game, and it's significant for both teams, as bad as they are. And if it comes down to a kick, you got to trust Jake Elliott in a big spot. You can't say
there were some kickers this weekend in those Saturday games.
Yeah.
They missed some big kicks.
Robbie Gould.
He
missed and he's so reliable.
I know.
It's not been a great year for kickers in general, I feel like. Extra points have been missed all year round. And clearly, you've seen like 4 teams just completely cut their kicker and bring a new guy in.
Yeah.
So obviously the Eagles won't be cutting Jake Elliott, but he's got to be on notice with how he has kicked this year. And I will expand that out. In general, special teams needs to be way better this week than it was last week against Arizona.
Yep.
All right, Trey, finish us off and let us know who your Manscaped man of the game is.
I'm going BG, man. You know, after the announcement of your first Pro Bowl, you know, you have a lot of guys that are down on your defensive front, you know, rallying the troops and just going out there and playing with a little bit more energy. I have to go BG on this one.
All right, Brandon Graham is your Manscaped man of the game. You'll have your eyes on him. We all will. Why don't you tell us a little bit more, Trey, about Manscaped?
All right, so listen up, fellas. 2020 officially sucked. It's almost a new year, which means new balls with our sponsor, Manscaped. Manscaped is best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels and helping 2 million men over the world get rid of hair on their balls. If you let yourself go in 2020 while in quarantine, Manscaped is here for you to reboot and stay clean and shaved in 2021. Manscaped is here to give you a fresh start in 2021 with their Perfect Package 3.0 that has all the right tools for the job. Come out of quarantine with the clean balls thanks to the Lawnmower 3.0. This waterproof skin-safe trimmer will reduce nicks to your 2 best friends. The third-generation trimmer, that's wild. The third-generation trimmer even has a light to give you the glow-up you need in 2021. It's also time to freshen up down there this new year. The Crop Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. You already put deodorant on your armpits. Why are you not putting deodorant on the smelliest part of your body? And for the on-the-go freshness, you'll love the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray. 2020 was awful, so make sure your boys are refreshed and ready for new beginnings in 2021. Manscaped even threw in their Shred travel bag to keep your goodies stored comfortably. Speaking of comfort, the Manscaped anti-chafing boxer briefs are also included and are hands down the best underwear you ever wear. A guy with hairy balls is like the year 2020. Don't be that guy. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code TRAY, T-R-A, at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
I didn't know they could talk. That's interesting. You never know what you're going to learn on this show.
Yeah, you never know.
Anything you want to diagram for Manscaped up there on the grease board?
No,
I didn't think so. No, I didn't think we want to. All right, moving on. We started to talk about it a little bit. I want to go through it a little bit more. It's a popular phrase around this city that Dallas sucks, but clearly Dallas Goedert does not suck, and he is now, and it almost seems like a subtle change where he has, because both guys got hurt, so both were out, and then they came back at different times, but certainly over the last few weeks, it leads you to believe that Dallas Goedert is now the team's #1 option in the offense, and certainly their #1 tight end.
Plays a lot of snaps.
I don't know if anybody would have envisioned that going into this year, even knowing the contract situation and the controversy with Zach, that all of a sudden Dallas Goedert would be the #1 tight end on this team. Now, from what you're seeing on tape, Greg, is that more, I mean, have they featured him more prominently in their offense, or is it just the ball going to him because Jalen seems more comfortable there?
That's a hard question. You know, to me, I would even like to see Goedert featured more, you know, because to me, Goedert, and I remember doing him coming out of college, and he was a really good prospect, and we know the Eagles traded up to get him in the second round. So they obviously saw something. To me, he's one of those tight ends, you know, that you can line up all over the formation. You can split him out wide. He's a matchup player. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's Darren Waller. He's not quite at that level. But I think you can use him in ways like that, and I think they'll grow into that as he continues to play. Now, whether Zach Ertz is here next year or not, we don't know the answer to that. But I think Goedert has the ability to be one of those tight ends that's a movable chess piece within an offense. You can line him up all over. He's a good blocker, too. That's the other thing. He's a good inline blocker in the run game. So I think he has a chance to be a complete tight end because of Zach Ertz being here. We haven't seen him until recently play this high number of snaps that he's been playing, and I think there's more to come.
Yeah, and just to go through some of the numbers here in the last 4 weeks since he's come back, he's #1 on the team in targets, #1 on the team in receptions, #1 on the team in receiving yards, and second in touchdown receptions. So these are kind of numbers that we associated with Zach Ertz to have so much
Right, and they're
repetition.
different players. Zach, to me, was always a short to intermediate receiver who had a great refined feel, nuanced feel for running routes and getting open, both against man, where he did a nice job, and then finding holes in zone. But I never saw Zach Ertz as a true vertical threat, although they did use him as a matchup player clearly, and he did run some vertical routes. But I think Goedert is a more explosive athlete.
What is the you said he's not on Darren Waller's level, but
Well, Darren Waller is a wide receiver in college.
I was going to say
Yeah.
receiver.
So what would stop Goedert from being in that? You know, let's say he's
now
the number
you
one
get
tight
into
end. Could
numbers.
he be a Kelsey?
Now you get
know?
into numbers. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Goedert is not going to be Darren Waller in terms of pure athleticism.
No, could be
Right.
80 to 90 catch season
but
guy.
he could be that guy without question, Adam. I mean, then it comes down to number of targets
Right.
and your offense. But I think Goedert has the ability to be a top 5 tight end in this league for sure. If you just look at ability,
Sure.
you know, so much of that is the way a team uses a player. I mean, look, Travis Kelce, I don't think he is anymore, but he was leading the NFL for a week or two in receiving yards. Dallas Goedert's not going to do that, but that's a function of the offense you're in and how you're used and targets and, you know, but Goddard's a really talented guy and a pretty explosive athlete.
Adam, I mean, it's almost hard to believe that just a few years after catching the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, that a divorce between Zach Ertz and the Eagles would be a real thing.
Again, you cannot pay 2 tight ends. It's just not something you can do, particularly with this team with their cap situation. So, again, no one's told me this, but I'm using logic here. I expect Zach to be traded. That's exactly what I see happening.
Traded. Okay.
Because just to be clear here, I'm just using logic here. That I'm answering the way you set it up.
Right.
You can't. This is not sustainable. Goedert's contract could be extended after the season. Greg just outlined how talented he is. He could potentially be a top 5 tight end. Zach wants to get his deal extended, and he wants a certain amount of money per year. It just doesn't mesh. It's not going to work. It's a shame, but Zach is now 30, clearly on the back 9. Does he have 2 or 3 years left in him? Absolutely. But it's probably not going to be here.
Everybody wonders, Trey, about, you know, if Carson Wentz is traded, does he come back and haunt the Eagles for X amount of years? What do you see for a guy like Zach if he's traded? Do you still think he's got 5 or 6 good tight end years?
No, I don't think he has 5 or 6 good years. Maybe 2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3 solid years. Because what year is this for Zach?
I only said 5 or 6.
13 was his draft, so this was year 8.
Some of the tight ends, you've seen some tight ends really play, like Ladarius, play into their mid and Gates. I meant Antonio Gates, not Ladarius.
I mean, you got Mercedes Lewis still out there.
Well, then it depends on what kind of player you are, though.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about Zach Ertz for a number of years, and obviously set the tight end receiving record in terms of catches. He was a really productive player in the Eagles' offense. I mean, he was a featured player and a highly, highly productive
Number 1
player.
pass target for many years. Yeah.
Right, but that, again, then you have to separate the skill set from the production. Production is a function of many things. Obviously, you have to have talent. You can't sit here and say he's not talented and he's going to catch 116 balls. But the point is he's not he's not Kelsey, he's not Kittle, he's not Darren Waller.
Sure.
Just in terms of overall athletic, explosive movement. So could he go to another team where they feature the tight end and catch 75 balls? More than likely he can. He'd probably be the kind of guy that catches 75 balls for 10.1 yards a catch. Sure. And there may be nothing wrong with that depending on the team he's with.
Right, right. I feel like the Colts are going to have a really nice Carson Wentz to Zach Ertz connection next year.
Well, I mean, look, the Colts have a guy, and when I say this, people will probably tell me I'm an idiot, but, as Zach Ertz continues his career, does he become a Jack Doyle kind of player? And maybe he's a little better than Jack Doyle, but I mean, that kind of player, a guy who's very reliable within the context of an offense, very serviceable, but is not an explosive player.
Sure. No, I'm curious to see where he goes, and it wouldn't surprise me if he kind of wound up in a system where they, as you're mentioning, they could use a guy to give you 3 to 4 to 5 catches and not have to be the dominant focal point of the offense.
Jeff, the pass game of the Eagles at 21 and on is going to be Goedert and Reagor. That's the pass game. And obviously Sanders at running back. Then they'll figure out, is Fulgham going to be the X? Because after what's happened to him, we don't know anymore. We can't say, obviously we can't say he's the X.
Well, they're going to have to make decisions in the offseason too. These guys won't be cut, but they have to make decisions on Hightower and Watkins. They did draft them. They drafted them because they're explosive athletes. Now, obviously, Hightower played significant snaps much of the year. They decided that he wasn't quite ready, and he's sort of now not really a factor, so they're giving Watkins a chance. Sure. So they'll have to make a decision on whether one or both of those guys is a meaningful part of what they do in 21.
Man, absolutely. I tell you what, though, if you take anything out of Big Red's book, speed kills.
Right. And both those guys can run.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's turn the corner a little bit and get into the cornerback position. We mentioned it earlier in the show. This is a spot that can be – this is a situation that can be very tenuous for the Eagles.
The Eagles matchups, their corners versus Dallas's receivers. I understand Andy Dalton is not the passer that Dak Prescott is, but to me, this is what the game comes down to. A, the Eagles' ability to pressure the quarterback, and that's Dalton. And B, Greg, how they're going to match up. What did you think of Michael Jacquet last week?
I liked him. I thought he was highly competitive. Now, he ended up playing a lot of snaps against Hopkins because Jacquet played the right side, and Hopkins almost always in the air raid offense lines up as on the left side of the offense. So he had numerous snaps against Hopkins. Now, it's easy to look at that final touchdown drive and say that, oh, he got beat on the 44-yarder and then he got beat on the touchdown. And by the way, on the touchdown, he had very good coverage. That was a great throw and a great catch.
Yeah.
But I thought the kid competed well. People have to remember, and I know I've spoken about this, I didn't know who Michael Jacquet was when he first played, whatever number of weeks ago. Was that the Dallas game, the first one?
Yes.
Ironically.
And I looked him up, okay? And I know I've said this on the show, but it's worth repeating. Hopefully different people are watching and more people are watching. But he went to college as he was a quarterback in high school, okay? He went to college, he got moved to wide receiver. His first 2 years of college, he played wide receiver. He was moved to corner as a redshirt junior. So he played corner his last 2 years. His last year, he was second team all Sun Belt. So clearly he improved dramatically at the corner spot. So now you're throwing him out in the NFL as a rookie. And you're asking him to line up against quality receivers.
Yeah.
I thought the kid competed. I think, Trey, you would agree. The kid competed.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can't sit here and say he's Deion Sanders. That's pointless.
Right.
But I think there's a future for this kid. And again, he needs an off season, and hopefully we have one. But I like what I've seen. He's 6 feet or 6'1". He's over 200 pounds. There's some physicality to him. The plays he got beat on, he wasn't just beaten badly. We went, oh my God, this guy can't play at all.
Right. He was there. He just needs to make the plays.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, as I said to Adam on the pod earlier in the week, like last year and the year before, you would see the Eagles give up a receiving touchdown, and you'd see the guy in the end zone catch the ball, and not until the last 5 seconds of the highlight do you see the cornerback run into the end zone
because he was back of the jersey.
Yeah, it's usually Rasul Douglas or maybe even Sidney Jones. But here you're seeing fight and competition.
Playing luck. There's even Trey knows it's true at every position. You could talk about it at tackle. When I evaluate players, we all like the guy who looks like a dancing bear, okay, and looks really smooth. But there's very few guys who can play like that in the NFL, snap after snap. Sometimes you just got to compete, and you just got to win. However it works. There's not a lot of Joe Thomases who look pretty almost all the time, as Trey would know. There's not a lot of those guys. Corner, you watch tape of college players and you want to see a guy that's so smooth, turns his hips well, change it around. You love that. Okay, there's not 50 of those guys.
Right.
So at corner, when you're playing man in particular, you got to compete.
Yeah.
And I thought Michael Jacquet competed.
Yeah.
Last week, it seemed like Jim mixed his man in zone and still played probably more zone than he did in the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season.
He did, for obvious reasons.
So he's been playing more zone lately.
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like today when you've got Amari Cooper at the Z and you've got Michael Gallup at the X, which some people think it's flipped, but it's not. Gallup is your X, Cooper is your Z.
Gallup is normally the X.
Right. Do you kind of leave, if you're Jim, do you have Darius Slay trail Cooper, or do you think it's better to just leave guys on their sides, keep it as simple as possible, and hope they match up well that way?
Man, with a young group like this, I would say, hey, man, let's leave everybody where they are. Let's
simplify it.
Let's keep it as simple as possible.
That's a Jacquet question, because he's probably, because he doesn't have a lot of experience, he may be more comfortable playing one side, because the last thing you want is him to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Keep in mind last week, and I made these notes, Eagles played predominant zone coverage last week with cover 3 and cover 2, the main concept. They only played 8 snaps of cover 1 on Murray dropbacks, and they did not blitz much at all. So you would think that you'd probably see a lot of zone coverage again today, especially with just 3 corners.
Right.
You would think that, because at the end of the day, they have 3 receivers that can beat you.
Yeah, that's actually the matchup on the inside is the one I'm concerned with the most.
Lamb versus
CeeDee Lamb versus.
And that's why you'd like to see a lot more zone, because Roby Coleman's 5'8".
Right. That's going to be an area. How's Andy Dalton playing in your estimation since coming back from the injury?
I think Dalton is at this point in his career, he's probably always been like this to some degree, but he's kind of a cautious, risk-free thrower. And unless there's a design and it's open, every team goes with shot plays or vertical route concepts depending on situation. If they call that and it's there, he'll throw it, but he's not a turn-it-loose guy. So if it's just a normal play, he's kind of a cautious, risk-free thrower, which is one reason I think that Gallup's numbers have declined, because obviously Dak, he throws it. Dalton does not do that.
Right. How concerned, concern is the word, but Tony Pollard clearly gives that offense.
He's got a little more juice right now.
Now they're talking about how Zeke's going to get the ball and be the starter, but I have a feeling that if they're smart, they're going to give Tony Pollard some opportunities today. Is he a guy that you kind of look at as probably a more dynamic weapon for them than Ezekiel Elliott, who has killed the Eagles in the past? But this guy is a little bit shiftier. He catches the ball really well. You saw him perform well when Ezekiel Elliott
he was
down.
a combo receiver runner at Memphis.
Yeah.
So he came into the league as that guy. The question for Dallas is this. And only they know the answer to it, but I think it's something they probably, starting Monday when they start to prepare for this game, they talked about as a staff. They know the Eagles have issues in the secondary, but they also know that Andy Dalton is not is toss the ball all over the yard kind of quarterback.
Right.
You don't really want to ask him to drop back 45 times by choice. So the question becomes, what's their overall approach? Is their overall approach, hey, let's run the football against a depleted D-line. We have Pollard, we have Zeke back. Let's run the ball, let's wear him down, let's play that way? Or do they say, you know what, let's increase our pass frequency, because at the end of the day, other than Darius Slay, we feel pretty good about the matchup in the secondary. So, again, I don't know.
Those are the options.
That's a philosophy thing.
Right.
They have to decide what the philosophy is going to be. Because the other thing you don't want to have happen if you're the Cowboys is Andy Dalton turning it over.
Yeah.
That is true. You got, and you said he's kind of a safe, risk-averse type of guy. I feel like this is going to be a big CeeDee Lamb game. And now it may not lead to them scoring a ton of points. It may be just over the middle, but I feel like he's probably good for 8 to 10 targets today.
Yeah.
Could be. He's a talented guy.
And we already depleted at our linebacker position as well, so.
Glad you mentioned that, because I did want to finish up discussing the linebacker position and get into Alex Singleton a little bit, because every once in a while we got to say, hey, more than we thought. I mean, Alex Singleton we used to refer to as a good linebacker because he's an Eagles linebacker.
Yeah, he's more than that right now.
He's starting to really become
I'm telling
something.
you, I watch all the teams in the league, and I got to tell you, Alex Singleton stands out on tape every week. I mean, I think he has a chance to be a really good player.
What stands out to you?
He's aggressive, he's competitive, he sees and goes. He'll be wrong sometimes. Hey, he doesn't have a ton of experience, but he sees it and goes. His play recognition is getting better the more he plays. He's athletic. He's easily the Eagles' most athletic linebacker. That's not a question.
Yeah.
I think this kid's going to be a good player. I really do. I think he's a good player now with a chance to be a very good player.
What do you like about him, Trey?
And that seeing and going is huge.
Yeah.
You know, because
Don't
you
you
don't
see
want a
that too?
linebacker.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a linebacker that's like, you got to recognize it. Hey, go. Even if you're wrong, go. Because I mean, and I think he plays with a certain type of energy that's a spark, and that's what this team really needs.
Absolutely. I was going to say, if above all, I mean, how unstable were they at linebacker, and how often in the first 4 or 5 weeks were we literally talking about the difference between a win and a loss? Is Nate Gary out there giving up this, giving up that, whether it's Higbee in the 3 touchdowns or Chase
He'll probably
Claypool.
play every snap today, by the way.
Yeah.
Last week was the first week
I know.
in 5 games he didn't play every snap. He only missed
today,
2. He only missed 2. So he's literally played every snap for 6 straight games.
Unbelievable.
He's become the Malcolm Jenkins Iron Man of the team. He doesn't play as many positions, but he's always on the field.
Yeah, that's good.
But the Edwards thing is an issue because they're going to be in their nickel package quite a bit, and we assume it's going to be Edwards unless they decide to play dime with 3 safeties a lot, which they could.
Could that? Because that would, I guess, Mills,
They have plenty of
Epps,
safeties,
and
right.
Kevon Wallace.
They could do that. They could do that. That's, again, a coaching thing and how they want to match up to 3 wide. Particularly, I don't know if they would do that on 1st and 10, but they certainly could do it on 2nd and long, 3rd down. But Edwards is really a run stopper. He's not really an athletic space player. And even if you play zone, he could be a guy that the Cowboys look to attack.
Sure. Now, the Cowboys will put a 4th receiver on the field. What's his
Nate Brown?
Nate Brown,
Nate Brown, right. And it seems like Dalton likes
Cedric
to target
Wilson,
him.
too.
And Cedric Wilson.
Who had one huge game earlier this season.
He did.
And Pollard is nasty out of the back.
Yeah, the Cowboys could go 10 personnel, 1 back, no tight ends, 4 wide with Pollard on the field, who's a very good receiver. That could be something they look to do today.
They've got explosiveness.
Against the depleted corner position.
This is why, Jeff, I am on the side of a high-scoring game, which I typically am not. Last week I wasn't. This week, neither team, I would be very surprised if both teams don't score at least 24 points in this game.
It would be interesting to me. Dallas has a chance to capitalize on the Eagles not only being thin, but if you want to do a little no huddle and prevent their substitutions, you can keep some guys on the field. Like Vinny Curry plays well against the run, but they probably like to bring in some other guys.
Yeah, I could
against
easily
the
see a
pass.
selective no huddle because, let's say Joe Osman's on the field, they might want to keep him on the field.
Right. And Jannard Avery is 6 feet even.
Right.
Yeah.
He hasn't played very much. He had the one huge game against the Niners where he was incredible. He hasn't played very much, so you're right. They have
As
an
Trey
advantage.
knows, most defenses, when you go no huddle, they go to what their default defense is, and by default defense, what their basic defense is. And by the way, everybody knows what that is based on tape study, so they could easily do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the Cowboys want to go big a little bit, put a couple tight ends on the field, maybe even if they're at the goal line, who do the Eagles put on the field outside of both Edwards and Singleton? They have to bring another linebacker on. Davion Taylor's out for the year, or at least on IR.
He's done.
We just said Duke Riley is out for this game, so I guess you're now going into the Sean Bradley.
Sean Bradley.
That's the only guy. That's the only.
Who has not played a
linebacker.
whole lot of snaps
No,
this
but
year.
it would be Sean
It would
Bradley.
be Sean
I mean,
Bradley,
if they
that's
go
it.
base, it'll be Sean Bradley.
Yeah.
I mean, because the Cowboys will line up with 2 tight ends at times, without question.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So I think it'll be Sean Bradley.
So you would like to try to keep, normally you would like to do this anyway, but you'd like to keep the Cowboys out of your red zone and off your goal line because that's another area where they can kind of go heavy and take aim at where you're thin. This is going to be tough. I think that everybody's kind of on like the Eagles are playing great.
The big
Jalen
one
Hurts,
is
this
because
a tough
they're
matchup.
72% 3 wide. That is where I think they have a decided advantage. Get one veteran corner, and you've got a slot corner who's been around for a while, but he's also small, and you got a kid who's just third year playing corner in his life.
Right.
Dallas has some advantages here.
Oh, yeah.
Our good friend Carl Stevenson, a loyal follower of Inside the Birds, has asked, will we see Jalen Reagor and Desean Jackson on the field at the same time?
They
And I
should
think,
do that.
we talked about
Yeah,
that.
I
That
think
is
so.
something we should see.
Yeah, I think so. You might see Desean Jackson, Jalen Reagor, and Quez Watkins out there on the field at the same time. Why not?
Oh, man.
How about a trick play?
You got to back off. Yeah, that too. Right. But defensively, guys, don't you have to back off in the secondary?
Receivers in the NFL than in college football.
Definitely.
A ton.
How's Akuda done? I mean, I know he's been hurt,
Not well.
but not
I was
well.
told
He was
not
up and
well
down
before-
this year. He
before he got
struggled a
hurt.
bit, and then
Yeah,
he
he's
was
on
hurt a
IR.
lot.
Yeah.
He was hurt a lot.
You like Jeff Gladney?
I did on tape. He had a great battle with Denzel Mims last year in college. Because
Mims told us.
Yes.
Gladney played on the outside in college, super competitive kid. I think he'll end up being a good player. People saw him the other night against New Orleans. He struggled making tackles, but he is competitive. I think, in this social media world, we expect everything to happen instantaneously. As Trey knows, being a
So it is still 3 or 2?
It is 3. It's up to 3 now.
That's a lot. Yeah,
So before we get to that, I want to let people know that while the holiday season is winding down, the sports calendar is in full swing this week. From college to pro sports, there's no shortage of action, and there's no better place to get in on all of this action than with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. And if you haven't tried DraftKings Sportsbook yet, what are you waiting for? To celebrate this year's college football playoffs, DraftKings is giving all new users the chance to bet on any semifinal team to win the championship at 100-1 odds. That's right. All you got to do is bet $1 on any semifinal team to win the championship. And if your team wins, you cash $100. And while we're all excited for football, let's not forget the 2021 basketball season just kicked off. So head to the app now to check out all of DraftKings' daily odds boosts. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code ITB when you sign up to get 100-1 odds on any semifinal team to win it all. And that's code ITB for new players to get a shot at $100 on any semifinal this week for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so I mentioned that the Eagles are 3-point road favorites. So this is the first time they've actually been favored to win a game since the last time they played Dallas.
You know,
if
this
I'm
is
not
pretty
mistaken.
cool. I mean, Eagles fan or not, I mean, you know, and I try to be as objective as I can because that's basically what I do at NFL Films. But it's pretty cool that we're going into today, Week 16.
Who knew?
And the Eagles could win the division. I mean, who knew?
How's that even possible?
I mean, yeah, I know.
Really.
I mean, obviously they need help from, you know, Carolina today, but, and by the way, Carolina could win that game.
They hung in there last week against Green Bay.
Yeah, but it's pretty remarkable.
And it appears, I don't know if we have official word yet, that Washington's starting quarterback.
It looks like it'll be
Yeah, it's
Haskins.
looking
will be
like
Haskins.
Yeah.
Haskins is going to start.
Yeah.
Because I
Haskins.
could tell you, checking in with Friday, they thought Alex Smith was ready to
And
go.
then he had a setback.
It's calf strain. I mean, and Dwayne Haskins, Greg, what is your opinion of Dwayne Haskins' tape this season?
He's got a ways to go, but putting that aside, I think the maturity level is a big issue.
Yes.
He's not a professional quarterback yet.
Right.
That's a big issue.
The sad thing is he lost all the weight, and people are like, "Wow."
I know, because when I watched him this past week, I was like, "Wow, he looks pretty good."
Right.
You know, I'm talking about his body
Off the
type
hoof,
and his
right,
movement.
right.
You know,
Sure.
But you know, he's got a long way to go. Now again, I'm not going to sit here. Like I said, I don't make these judgments. You know, oh, guy can't play. You know, we don't know that. But right now, I think he doesn't see things very well in the middle of the field, and that's going to take a little time.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
He's probably still at the point, I don't think he would admit this, but I've talked to quarterbacks over the years. We've had a bunch of quarterbacks in our broadcast boot camp that I've gotten to know well, guys who retire. And one of the things I always heard them say to me was, man, when I got to the NFL, it sometimes looked like there were 15 defenders on the field. And I think Haskins is a little bit in that
Seeing
stage,
ghosts. Remember
particularly when the route design's in the middle of the
Sam
field.
Darnold said he was seeing ghosts last year.
Yeah, and what that means is you're seeing just players when they're not really there. I mean, you know.
And I think for him, he needs to change the scenery. You know, being
Which I
from
think will come.
Washington.
Yeah, that might be a good point.
I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine playing in the city that I grew up in.
And remember, Ron Rivera, the head coach, who's personnel control, he inherited this roster.
Yes.
And he's forced to keep Dwayne Haskins only this year. He'll be able to do whatever he wants after this.
Well,
season.
they're going to get a quarterback. I'm not saying it'll be a great one, but they're going to add a quarterback to that roster.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're keeping score at home, there have been, by my count, 11 different starting quarterbacks in the NFC East. The Eagles have had 2, of course. The Washington has had 3. Cowboys have had 4.
Where's Ben DiNucci when you need
Yeah,
him?
right. Cowboys have had 4? Oh,
Yeah, Cowboys.
gosh.
DiNucci,
Gilbert?
Dak, Gilbert,
Yeah.
and,
Oh, yeah,
now,
right.
and
Wow.
Andy Dalton.
4.
So yeah, 4 quarterbacks, and yet they're still in. They can win this
I know.
division.
How's that even
crazy
possible?
enough? And the Giants have been lucky to only have to start 2 quarterbacks this year.
And Jones is going today.
He's going today, yeah.
He is going today, so we'll see what they do against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah,
In Baltimore.
Good luck with that.
Right. By the way, if you wanted an update on our predictions,
Yes.
it's tight here as we head into the stretch. I'm 7-7. Adam is 7-7. Trey is 8-6.
Uh-oh.
And Greg, you are 7-7. So The pressure is on all of us to make up one game over
I'm
the
not
next
really
2
feeling
weeks.
the pressure
This
here.
one
No, I
is
didn't think
tough.
so. All right.
This one is tough.
Start it off, Adam.
is
Who do you
tough.
see winning this game?
I do believe it's going to be a high-scoring game, almost the same exact score I had last week, a little bit different. But unlike last week where I picked the Cardinals, I'm going to pick the Eagles to win 30-27 over the Cowboys. So that would be a push.
27. So that means it's a push, but you are taking the over. I neglected to mention that the total for this game is 50, which
it's
is
50, okay.
one of the higher over-unders for an Eagles game in several
The
weeks.
Jalen Hurts factor.
It must be the Jalen Hurts.
D-Jax, Desean Jackson's going to be in it. I mean, they're going to. I expect defenses to be under siege in this game.
All right. So Adam has 30-27 Eagles. Greg, we'll go to you. Who do you have winning this game?
You know what? I'm going to pick the Birds.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to pick the Birds to win 27-24.
Okay, 3-point game as well.
All right. Any? So this kind of comes down to a field goal, or you think
Well,
it's like,
27-24 would mean that, Jeff, yes. I don't know if it'll come down to a
doesn't have
field
to
goal
come down
at
to
the
a
end of the
field goal.
game, but
it could be 27.
Right.
It doesn't have to, Greg.
Do I also have to tell you how the game will
Do
go?
I have to
from
explain to you how
21
football?
I did before last week. I did say.
People who follow me know how much I love doing this kind of stuff.
You do it so well.
All right. Well, we'll see if my Jake Elliott Manscaped Man of the Game prediction comes through.
If it comes down to that, oh boy.
For that, because that's how Greg sees it, 27-24. All right, Trey, how do you see
know what?
this
I had
game?
originally put who knows.
Yeah, we're not letting you get away with
Yeah,
that.
I can't do that without
No, we're
switching
done
with
with
the
who knows, my friend.
Yeah, with
We're
the
like
record
the
is so
season.
close, and you know what? I'm gonna have to pick us. I got to pick us. I got to take us Eagles. I got to take the Eagles.
What's do you even want to, maybe a score? Or
you know what? Let's go. Let's go 30. Let's go 30-26.
All right, 30-20. Everybody is definitely on the over. This is a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
Which
It's
sets
funny
up
how the
well for
league
me.
works, though. Everybody thought, yesterday that the Cardinals would put up 35 on the 49ers. Didn't quite work that way.
I started Kyler Murray in my fantasy over Tom Brady.
Oh.
That did not go over
Kyler
well.
Murray has a lot of games where he completes 25 balls for 130 yards.
Yeah, I've noticed that
Yeah,
lately. He's kind of come down off the fantasy ladder.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have Alvin Kamara, so I think I'm going to be all right.
And 63 points.
Yeah.
Is that guy the smoothest looking guy? I mean,
Nice combination
he's
of
fun.
power.
Number
I saw his
speed.
pregame, I know we got to get going. I saw his pregame workout in a preseason game a couple of years ago. He didn't even play in the game, but he still went through his preseason workout.
Talking about Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, the guy is so light. I've never seen anyone standing next to a guy so light on his feet. I mean, it was like he was moving on air.
Well, he's been an amazing weapon for them.
How was he a third-round pick?
Because he never carried.
He
if
wasn't
I'm not
even the
mistaken,
starter at
if I'm
Tennessee.
not mistaken, I could be wrong. Someone could check this. He either never carried or only did it one time. Carried 20 times in college.
Yeah, he was not their number one
No.
running
So
back.
production, okay.
Do you know he
He's
went to
in the
Alabama
NFL.
originally? He was an
I didn't
Alabama
know that.
recruit.
Okay.
So I mean, he was a big-time recruit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But whoever was their most used running back is also in the NFL right now, but just not nearly as good as Kamara, I believe. I can't remember his name.
Josh
Was that
Jacobs?
the year Jalen Hurts was their feature back
for
at
the-
Tennessee as
May
a
have been
freshman
Hurts.
when he gained 1,200 yards as a runner?
Might have been.
I'll check it out, but I know that they had
that
another
might have
running
been the
back who was
case.
productive. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, listen, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm
Someone's
going up
doing it.
against everybody.
You're picking the Cowboys,
I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. I do think that the Hurts train comes back to earth a little bit, and as we've talked about today, the matchups on the outside at wide receiver favor the Cowboys, and of course the Eagles, where they get their bread and butter on the D-line, they're a little banged up there at the end. So I do think that's why the Cowboys are going to win this one by a little bit. 31-27 is my prediction. So we will see.
So we're all picking relatively
happens.
high-scoring games here.
High-scoring games, right.
I just don't see any way. These defenses aren't very good, particularly
Yeah.
Dallas. The opportunities are there for both teams to score and throw the football, and we will see. But the one issue that had Sweat and Barnett been playing, I absolutely thought they'd be able to win this game rather handily. But it does concern me as the game wears on and if the Eagles' defense is on the field. You're asking two older DNs, Graham and Curdy, to be on the field a lot.
Definitely. All right, we'll see how it shakes out. Big thanks to DraftKings, Manscaped, Rebel Hill Productions, and Sky Motor Cars. Make sure you're subscribed to the Inside the Birds platform. We'll have them dropping Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m. And, of course, Tales with the Blind Side, from the Blind Side and Grilling the Birds will be up this week as well. For Greg Cosell, Trey Thomas, and Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. Enjoy the game and have the great rest of the week, everybody.